And welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno here on Achieve Radio. And we're speaking with Susan Rawlings, a UFO expert and chief of the UFO department at the International Metaphysical University. And before we take another point here, a question from Mitch, one of our listeners in California, we wanted to finish the point about Dennis Kucinich, the Democratic politician who's well known. And you were saying that he was talking about a UFO experience of his own?
Yeah, actually, during the Democratic presidential candidate debate, he was questioned about his experience. What had happened was he had an experience when he was visiting with Shirley MacLaine and her home, and she published a chapter about it in her book, Saging While Aging. And so he was questioned about that experience during the debates. They actually, I believe, even fired a question at Barack Obama about alien or extraterrestrial. He kind of downplayed it. But Dennis Kucinich answered the question honestly. He said that, yes, he had had an experience. It was a triangular-shaped craft, and that it was a very positive, loving experience, and that he had a feeling of love in his heart, and he received messages in his mind. And, you know, of course, people, because it was such a conservative setting, people started to chuckle and laugh. And, you know, he immediately took charge of the situation, which he did just such a great job of it. I have so much respect for him. And, you know, he made a joke about more people having UFO experiences than had approved of the Bush presidency. So yeah. I know it was really funny. But, you know, he was questioned about it, and he did talk about it openly. You know, unfortunately, that was the end of the road for him after that, but, you know, in the debates. But he answered it very honestly and very openly, and I have the most respect for him for that.
Well, Jimmy Carter reported while he was governor of Georgia in 1970, you know, reported that it was twice. Two different experiences. Yeah. Wait. Well,
yeah,
let's,
and he made efforts to you know, open the UFO files, but he when he got into office, just of course, like other presidents who had wanted to get this more out in the open, was met with serious resistance about it.
Well, you know, the thing is, when someone gets elected president, they as we say, they are shown the three-ring binder. All the secrets, not all, I don't know, whatever, but whatever they see, it does tend to sober them up. Anybody, regardless of their politics, they get into office, and once they see the three-ring binder, I don't know. So what's in there, I don't know. But anyway, we have a question. Mitch wanted to clarify his point from California, and if Ben could take it away.
Right. He says in response to your answer, my point was, obviously they could destroy us, but perhaps they have reasoning for not wanting to. The abduction and cattle mutilation stories point to some agenda we don't understand. But very little of it seems to be friendly, or it often sounds hostile. Perhaps Truman was told to shut up and let these things go on, or else, in quotations. The alternative could be much worse.
Again, introducing a little bit of negativity, but again, I would share Mitch's concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay, because it is part of this reality. It's a very big part of this reality. And thanks, Mitch, for your questions. I'm sorry I wasn't able to clarify that a little bit more. As far as any world leader, president, or whatever being threatened by a certain extraterrestrial civilization, I can't say for sure. I just don't know. I just don't know that information. I don't want to pretend that I do. So I apologize that I can't be more clear on that. You know, and as far as cattle mutilations and things like that go, and the abduction experiences, I do know that there is a sinister aspect to some of this reality, and it is a reality, not a phenomenon. It's a reality. So, you know, I can only, again, speak from my own experiences, which have been very positive, but I do acknowledge that on the more sinister aspects of this, that it does go on. You know, I'd just like to put in here for a moment, I have an instructor, his name's Jim Maroney, and he is working he's covering a class in the UFOlogy program about the contact and abduction phenomenon, and he's had experiences himself. And also, Mary Rodwell. Now, I'm trying to get her on as an instructor. She hasn't agreed yet. But let's start with Jim. And when I talked to Jim about his experiences, he referred to the abduction phenomena, and that's when people feel more that they've been violated, or they've been taken out of their environment, or they've been probed, or whatever's happened against their will. And he explained this to me, and his words were more like an intervention. Okay, that's the way that he approached it with me. And then Mary Rodwell, who has done several regressions, and she's done support groups for experiencers, and she's done a lot of hypnotic regressions with abductees and experiencers, and she has gone on to say in books that she's published and DVDs that she's done that a lot of these people, once they get past the fearful part of it, come to realize that there is a whole lot more to this than what they ever realized, and that they had agreed to be a part of this before they even came here, almost kind of on a soul level. So I can say that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Why is the government? Well, I was chased across the desert just for going near Area 51. I went, I mean, it's a long story. I mean, if they're getting ready to reveal this, or at least some, why are there still men in black and all, for lack of a better term, or all these things, if they are indeed from the government? I mean, you mentioned being buzzed by helicopters at that particular event out in the desert there. What's that about?
Well, I think anything that has to do with UFO activity, UFOs are still, as we speak, because they're unidentified flying objects sharing our airspace, they're considered a threat to national security. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And so, they are people who are having these experiences. When these craft are showing up and they're detected, it's considered a threat to national security. So there are follow-up on it on a military level. There is a follow-up. I mean, I know the Stevensville incident, the sightings that they had out there. I'm sure you're familiar with those.
I'm sorry, Phoenix?
Stevensville, Texas.
Oh, yes,
this is
right.
Stevensville, Texas. When they had the huge craft that was, like the size of a football field that was witnessed by a lot of people in that little township, in that little area there. Some of those people out there were harassed because, they're still considered a threat to national security. So that's the way that I could answer that.
Okay, but you're on the air talking about this. I mean, you go to these things. You're an advocate for disclosure. Have you yourself ever been harassed, to the best of your knowledge?
I'm not sure if this was connected to my love for ufology.
Yeah.
But I have had some strange things happen. I had a few anonymous phone calls at one time telling me to shut my business down, that I was being watched, that my phone conversations were being listened to. And, I just thought, okay, listen to them. I don't have anything to hide. I wouldn't say anything over the phone line or whatever that I wouldn't get up and speak out in a public place. Mm-hmm. So nothing ever came of it, but, it did shake me up because I've never had anything like that ever happen in my life. And it was unnerving. I'm sure, just like you said, being chased through the desert, mm-hmm. In Area 51, I'm sure in some respects that was probably unnerving for you as well.
Oh, yeah. You might say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there for that. I was just going to the Rachel to pick up some, cheesy souvenirs for my sons, Let's talk about Edgar Mitchell for a minute. He was on the show back in the summer, and he seemed a little bit reticent about the not about, it was sort of about the UFO subject as opposed to his own personal spiritual experiences, which I found very beautiful, naturally. What I don't know, he didn't seem all that anxious to talk about UFOs as such.
Well, it's probably because he's been talking about it for years.
Yeah.
He's really been talking about this stuff for years, and now all of a sudden, boom, he does one radio interview some time ago. I think it was one that was in the UK.
It was in England, yes.
Yeah, and then boom, all of a sudden he's getting all of this international exposure about it. And, my feeling on that was, maybe that wasn't by accident. Maybe that was orchestrated as a part of the disclosure movement. I can't say for sure, but my feeling was he's been talking about this stuff for years. I actually heard him on Coast to Coast, I think, and he was surprised by all of the attention that it got because he was just saying, I've been talking about this stuff for years, and now all of a sudden it's getting all of this international international exposure. So it might be something that he's just tired of talking about, or it's just redundant to him because he's been talking about it for so long, but now everybody's catching on.
Yeah,
that could
true.
very well be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could very well be. And, I know he's a very spiritual man. I've heard him talk at conferences. I've listened to his interviews, and I know that he's even working very closely with some of our instructors in the UFOlogy program, Rebecca Hardcastle and Terry Mansfield.
Yep.
And I just really think that probably his objective is more on the human aspect of let's grow spiritually and focusing on that right now.
Very much so. Edgar Mitchell being, in case anybody, in the unlikely event anybody doesn't know who he is, Apollo 14 astronaut, went to the moon, sixth man to walk on the moon, and his experience doing so and on the way back to Earth was just soul transforming, as anybody who's been to the moon will probably tell you. But Edgar was not afraid to talk about that experience, and as it's turned into a crusade for human understanding, world unity, and peace. And who can fault that? Wonderful man. And anyway, so that's who we're talking about. Now, on the issue, Ben, did you want to ask about crop circles?
Yeah. What is your opinion on crop circles?
Wow. Well, my opinion, I believe that some of them are very real, and I believe that some of them are hoaxes. I believe that, from the research that I've done on crop circles, now I'm not an expert on it. I've done some research on it, but I can't claim to be an expert. But I do know that a lot of people will claim UFO activity around the formations. And, there seems to be a very high military interest in some of these formations. And so I believe that they're very real. I believe that when we look at them, that they give us, some of them will give us messages. Some of the messages are very direct. Some of them are in binary. There was a formation. Have you seen the alien face formation that was formed that had the big circle, the circle that had the binary message in it? Have you seen that?
No, did you, Ben?
No.
Doesn't ring a bell with me. No.
Yeah, there was a message that was actually interpreted. It was a message in binary that was interpreted by three different experts in binary from around the world, and it was the message was something like, oh gosh, I wish I had I talk about this in my lecture, but it's off the top of my head. I'm just going to wing it here. Something about we oppose deception. There is still time, but basically it was almost saying like the time is running out. So, there have been barcodes that have come forward with messages. There was a cross formation that had a barcode over to the side. So, we really need to pay attention to these formations. They're becoming more and more intricate. Some of them are looking almost more three-dimensional now. There was one of the largest ones. This was a really interesting story. One of the largest formations that I believe was from the 2009 season of last year was it looked like a human with huge butterfly wings. Did you guys see that one? Did you see the formation?
I think I saw that one, yes.
Yeah, and what was really cool about that one, Dr. Bruce Lipton, I love his work. I followed him for a long time. That formation, I don't know the exact date when it appeared, but for the listeners who are out there, they can Google it. But Dr. Bruce Lipton, he was releasing a book that had that formation on the cover, and it hadn't quite been released. It was just a few days after, but the whole thing had to do with transformation of humanity and the spiritual uplifting. And there have been several Mayan codes. There have been solar cycles, depicted in some of these. There have been even technology. There was one formation that people believe that had to do with some of Tesla's technology. So these formations are very, very important, and they're giving us messages. I also believe not only do, when we look at them in conscious awareness, can we get messages from them and they speak to us, but I also believe that they address us on a more unconscious level or subconscious level through the symbolism.
All right. Maybe we'll get back to that, but right now we have a call from Cindy in Kansas City. Cindy is one of our show field reporters and always calls in with interesting comments and questions. So, Cindy, are you with us?
Well, thank you, Paul. You're very complimentary.
Well, I think you're big. Okay, so you're on with Susan. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I agree with the crop circles. I just wanted to make one quick comment about that. of course, the crop circles all are mathematically transferable, and they do, the real ones, not the ones that we make, but the real ones all transfer back to pi. So that's a mark of a real one, that mathematically they will transfer into pi. Another thing, you were talking about disclosure, and this isn't really a pleasant thought to have, but I believe it's the truth. All we could possibly be to these aliens is a resource, whether it's human resource or planetary resource or whatever. That's all we could possibly be. What else would we have that they wanted? They don't need friends, and they don't need our technology, obviously. So I think that that's really all that's going on there as far as that goes. So disclosure, if they had made clandestine agreements of some sort with our government or anybody else's government or whatever the powers, I think Eisenhower did have contact with them. I wouldn't trust them. You know, I wouldn't trust any of these things, be they parasital entities or aliens. I just don't trust them. Why should they hold an agreement with people that they're a whole lot smarter than? And I just think that's the reality of it. We can put powder all over the idea of what they might want us for all day, but I think when you come up to it, it's just we're either a grocery store or a filling station or both.
What say you, Susan? Yeah. Go ahead, Susan. Please feel free to respond.
Well, I would like to add in a response to that. I do know that the UFO activity became increasingly more so when human beings started using nuclear weapons. And, you know, we talked about that a little bit earlier. And, you know, so there may even be a sense, an aspect to some of this reality that they're monitoring. They're monitoring us in that
station.
right. That they're monitoring us in that sense because this nuclear activity not only affects our worlds, it affects worlds that are you know, that we're not even aware of, that we talked about earlier, that may be vibrating around us that we're not aware of. But these explosions are so massive that it can have an effect on their worlds as well, and so they're monitoring that, and that may be another reason for some of this. You know, some of this heightened activity over the last few decades.
And then I think, like I said, I just think they want us to take care of this place because it
Absolutely.
Has something that they need. We're not exclusive in resources because the periodic table tells you that stuff's everywhere. That's why we've got it. So I think anything you need to look for extraterrestrially, you can look for terrestrially. And, you know, anything we need here, they need too, and they can find it anywhere. And why should they fight us for it if they can go somewhere else and get it with on a planet, say that there's nothing civilization-wise going on, and they could get it a lot easier. So there's something, I don't know what, it could be that we're molecularly compatible, competitive, whatever. But there's something going on. But I think we're just, like I say, either a grocery store and or a filling station, probably like a quick trip. They have both. So I'll let you guys go. And thank you. Your guest is real interesting today. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Yeah, just maybe to amplify a little bit, I mean, I don't trust a lot of these things either. But on the other hand, you know, I like to think that there is goodness and truth and justice and rightness out there somewhere, and I like to agree with you too, certainly, Susan, on that. I just I can't bring myself to believe that there is no truth and goodness, and that we're all being lied to. I think essentially what we all want to know is: are we cattle, or are we special? You know,
well, I think, you know, in some areas, you know, where we're having some of this more negative reality with this, we may be viewed as cattle. And then in some respects where, you know, because there are so many experiencers that they have the contact and they are shown many beautiful things. Some of them are shown kind of scary things with the way that we're treating the planet. stripping the resources and things like that. And then, some of these experiencers are coming back with very heightened psychic abilities, with healing abilities, artistic abilities. I mean, it's just endless. And so in that respect, I say that there are some of these civilizations that will look at us like we are special, and they are willing to give us some of their enlightenment or some of their gifts. So it's not all bad.
There is a theory that I've heard. And I hear, we hear them all on this show or outside of it.
Yeah.
And one is that and this goes back to the idea of messing with our genetics, that they or some of their people or whatever messed with our genetics, and they feel and they messed it up to the point where we almost don't even belong on this planet anymore, and they feel guilty about it. And they're here to try and fix it. I mean, there are national policies on Earth that have reflected this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, there's a researcher who I have the utmost respect for. His name's Michael Tessari, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. But he takes a more negative approach to this when it comes to the genetic engineering. And I highly recommend for people who want to explore his work to do it, because he's just got amazing information out there, and he does believe that human beings genetically were messed with, and that it set us back. It really set us back. So, that could very well be, too.
Well, that's it. I think of, I don't know, a nation will make a mistake. I'm thinking of some of them, especially the colonial nations, the old empires, like the British Empire, whatever. Sometimes there'll be a sense of having to make things right, say in an old colony, and so that sort of thing. There is a precedent terrestrially for this sort of thing. So maybe that's part of it. And now, before we get into, I wanted to get into some of our emails actually here.
Okay.
When we have, but I wanted to do that in our final half hour. But there is an issue too. I wanted to get back to some of these ancient documents that you described, and in your experience with whether it be Genesis or the Vedas or the Mahabharata or the Karsak epics, whatever ancient documents we're talking about, what to you are the most significant references to contact in those ancient documents? If you can just pick a few out of the air.
There are so many. Let's just say the Mayan Book of Community, the Popol Vuh. It's the creation story to the Mayans.
Yeah.
They talk about men coming from the stars, knowing everything, and they examine the four corners of the sky and the Earth's round surface. There are, oh my goodness, indigenous people, the Dogon tribe, who have had extensive star maps, extensive knowledge of star systems that they could never have had.
Sure.
And they say that it was given to them from the people of the stars. We get our Native American people talking about, extraterrestrials being our brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I came across some information recently from a gentleman who was interviewed by Nancy Red Star. His name's Robert Manyhawks. Very, very impressive background, this man. And he says that the Lakota are actually sharing their star maps with NASA.
Really?
That's
cool. Yeah.
In an interview that he did with Nancy Red Star, you can probably find that interview on her website. I've had that. I had to go back and review some material, but it's just really, it's all over the place. Biblically, the book of Ezekiel is one that's a very, very strong reference, in my opinion, that could very well, aside from traditional interpretations, could be looked at as a visitation or a contact experience. So, and it's really all over the place if we go back in history and keep our minds open.
Well, we had a contest. We only do contests on one show now. It's too complicated otherwise. Well, one of the contest questions was, who was the Egyptian pharaoh who had an apparent UFO experience and changed Egypt's religion because of it? And, of course, it was Amenhotep IV, otherwise known as Akhenaten.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know if that's really what happened, but there is some interpretation that he had UFO experience of the sun disk that he called it, and changed Egypt's religion into a monotheistic. There are also theories that he was actually Moses, and all sorts. You can get pretty far afield with some of this. But you're familiar with that phenomenon. Do you think he really had a UFO experience?
Absolutely. If you look at Akhenaten, if you look at some of the statues of Akhenaten, they say that his unusual appearance had to do with Marfan syndrome, but I think Akhenaten may have been, I'm going to just go out on a limb here, but I think Akhenaten may have been something more than human. I think he may have been extraterrestrial himself.
Well, he looks pretty weird in his some of his renditions.
And if you look at the depictions of his children, they have the elongated skulls. And, there have been so many skulls that have been found. Some have been in Peru, I believe. Some of them are Egyptian. And, they have the very elongated, form to them. And, and some, you could go back and say, well, that was because of the ancient practice of binding, skull binding, which was done to mimic the gods. But these skulls have been scientifically looked over and really studied, and what they've come to find is that the cranial capacity of some of these skulls is so much larger than the skull of a human, and binding cannot change the cranial capacity of a skull. It can't change it.
Yeah. Well, as our friend Lloyd Pye came out and talked about the Star Child skull,
Lloyd's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I love Lloyd. And he also says,
he's great.
Everything we know is wrong. So.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with Lloyd. He's great. I have the most respect for Lloyd.
So are we. Okay, we're going to take our break, and we'll be right back on Behind the Paranormal. We'll get into some of our emails from our listeners for Susan Rawlings, UFO expert. Stay with us.
AchieveRadio.com. The future is now.
Hi, folks. This is Paul Eno, co-host of Behind the Paranormal here on Achieve Radio. We're very pleased to have as our sponsor New River Press and Barking Cat Books, publishers of some of the most unusual New Age titles on the market today. Along with 4 books by moi, New River Press offers the blockbuster on animal communication, Hear All Creatures, The Journey of an Animal Communicator by Karen Anderson, Shadows on My Shift, Real-Life Stories of a Psychic EMT by psychic medium Sherry Lee Devereaux, Achieve Radio talk show host of Opening Your Intuitive Eyes, and in a true story that will break your heart with its beauty, especially if you've ever lost a child, there's 41 Signs of Hope by Dave Kane, about the ongoing love and communication between a father and a mother and their son, youngest victim of the 2003 nightclub fire in Rhode Island. Finally, from Barking Cat Books, don't miss the action-adventure that spans 1,000 years, Heaven's Wave, a novel of the doomsday prophecy of 2012 by Dierline. Visit NewRiverPress.com, BarkingCatBooks.com, Amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore.
Hello, this is Paul McNeese of OPA Author Services. For a long time, I've believed that every author should be a speaker and every speaker should write. So today, I'm here to let you know that if you're an author or a speaker, trainer, consultant, coach, or seminar leader, there's a new nest being built just for you at www.authorsroost.com. The Authors Roost is a new concept, a new idea, an internet membership organization, and a portal website that brings authors, speakers, and experts together with each other, with lots of great information and education, and with their marketplaces, including media all over the country, and with local, regional, and national meeting planners, people who hire speakers every day. The Authors Roost is definitely going to be a place where you can learn and teach and grow by interacting with others who, like you, are willing to share their ideas and experience. So, take a look right now at The Authors Roost, www.authorsroost.com. I think you'll be very glad you did.
Powerhits.com. The future is now.
All right, we are back behind the paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, and our guest this evening on theChiefRadio.com here is Susan Rawlings.
Can you please change that music?
Oh, Ben has never been enamored of, well, that's the only show that still has that. I tried to pick a nice handle, a piano sonata, that the paranormal really has a happy ending to it.
Slowly driving me insane.
Okay, well, you'll manage. All right. Anyway, welcome back, Susan Rawlings, of course. Here in our final half hour, I'd like to get into some of our emails. You'll manage. Have some more tea. Okay. And here, distract yourself with reading some of these emails, Ben. Okay. And this is Who's in Charge, and it's from Fred G. in San Antonio, Texas.
But he doesn't have annoying theme music. Is it possible that aliens are pulling the strings of our governments, that they will determine when and how much disclosure will happen? What does Miss Rawlings think of this, or does she trust them?
We touched on this a little, but go ahead, Susan.
Well, I definitely believe that the leaders that we think are in charge are not.
Really?
I believe that yeah, I do. I really, politics, as much as we want to believe in some of these politicians, I just, as the years go by, I just continually lose faith. Hopefully that will be changing. What I would like to say in response to, I think the question was about possible alien activity pulling the strings behind the scenes. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. That's the way I interpret it, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a possibility. There are a lot of researchers who believe that this is a possibility. David Icke is a big one. And
yes.
David really gets into the more negative aspect of all of this. And I have to say, I have so much respect for David. I appreciate his work. I've read many of his books, and I am constantly finding myself going back to them as a reference point. I highly recommend for anybody who wants to explore the more darker side of this, check out David Icke. He's got free movies on Google Video and on YouTube and things like that. But I definitely would have to say that I believe that I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility, but I cannot say yes or no for sure either way. But there are a lot of people out there that believe that these kind of things are going on.
Yeah. Well, we often say that, if we're getting back into the parasite thing, that if you see what they do in communities, even in families, with individual lives, what could they do in the halls of government, and whether these are in any stretch of the imagination, aliens by the terms we've been using for that is another question. But anyway, here's one, and this is kind of something we touched on before too, but I guess maybe you'd like to know a little more. This is from Nina Stragowski in New York City.
Okie dokie. And Nina says, Paul and Ben sometimes hint that spiritual guides, ghosts, aliens, and demons could all just be terms. That they could actually be the same beings, or at least have the same source.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does Susan think this could be true? Question.
If demons and spirit guides and aliens are all in the same.
Yeah, I don't think we really have ever said that, but that's the question.
Well, I in my work as a psychic medium, I have to refer back to this because most of this has been about UFOlogy.
Yes.
But in my work as a psychic medium, I have, and it hasn't happened very often, but there have been a few times that I've come across pure evil. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's been very scary. It's been very upsetting. Losing sleep and things like that. But I feel for the most part that people do have very benevolent spirit guides and angels that come around them. I believe that people also have very benevolent extraterrestrial guides that will come around and help them. And so I can't say that I believe that they're all cut from the same mold that is demonic. No way.
Sure. Okay.
That's not my belief.
That's a clear answer, and I thank you. Okay. Now here's one about you as a medium. This is from Gabby in Omaha, Nebraska.
All right. When Dr. Rawlings acts as a medium, do aliens sometimes act as guides, or does she channel them?
It's a very traditional question.
Well, my answer to that question would be that they do act as guides for people. When I first, and we talked about this a little earlier in the show, when I first started to really do my readings professionally rather than just for family and friends, which I've been doing since '99, but I've been doing readings pretty much the majority of my life, I began experiencing some of these extraterrestrial presence. And, even though I was open to it, it really threw me for a loop. And I went to one of my spiritual teachers and talked with him about it. And he just kind of laughed and said, oh, you're just becoming more open. You're just more open. And so you're having these experiences now. And as far as channeling extraterrestrials, when I do channeling, it's a little different. Channeling, for some people, they will completely leave their body. They will completely allow another entity to come in and take over and talk through them and use their vocal cords. I myself do not feel comfortable with that. Call me a control freak, I don't know. But I just don't feel comfortable with allowing an entity to completely come in and use my body as a vessel and my vocal cords. What I do with channeling is more of a third-party way, where I can see them, I can feel them, I can experience the messages that they're giving me, and so I can give the messages on to another person. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Sure, they're probably very wise to approach it that way as well.
Yeah, I can't.
No, Ben, did you have any more questions before we get into the 2012 issue?
Nope. Nothing I can think of.
All right. I wanted to sum up, before we get into your work and IMU and everything else, there's just one final question about the 2012 issue. We kind of touched on this before, and a lot of people are probably wondering, whatever is going to happen, is it good or bad, or if anything is going to happen at all. Can you sum up your vision of this and whether this is leading up to the, as we said, the height of the electromagnetic disturbances that are going on now, and what exactly is your vision in a nutshell for 2012 and the involvement of hopefully our friends here?
Okay. Well, I believe that 2012 is a positive thing. I don't believe that it's gloom and doom. When I look forward psychically into the future, and I do this all day, I do it every day, I don't see all of the gloom and doom. Now, I do see some things with earth changes and things like that, and we're already experiencing some of this.
Sure.
Heightened earth changes, and we all know about this. But I really believe that 2012, and I talked about this before, I really feel that we're already in the thick of it. I feel like we're already experiencing the effects of it. I just feel that as we get closer to that date, we will be experiencing even more heightened psychic awareness, veils between the worlds thinning. I also believe that some of these structures, institutions that are no longer serving us, whether they be politically or religious, will be reforming. And, and this needs to happen. This absolutely needs to happen. And so when we're going through reforms that are so extensive such as this, it will appear to people that we are going through upheaval. We're already experiencing this here economically here in the United States. And so, but I really believe that it's almost like a growing pain, and that ultimately it's leading us to something so much better.
Okay, what? Not to put you on the spot, but what do you see the ultimate? What do you see the ultimate result being here?
Well, I think the ultimate result will be humanity as a whole growing more spiritually and not being dependent on religious institutions. Now, I'm not bashing religious institutions. I just feel a more spiritually enlightened vibration that brings us all together rather than separating us. I believe that some of these political institutions that are corrupt and even going into global and world leaders and things like that don't have humanity's best interests at heart, some of these institutions will be changing and more positive influences will be coming in to take over. And I also believe, with our growing spiritually, that goes into the technology that will be allowed to be released, which will allow for cleanup of pollution, less dependence on fossil fuel, free energy, and things like that. So I believe that this is a time that we all will want to look forward to.
Sort of a next step in our evolution kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Will we control it, or will the aliens control it?
Well, I think it's up to human beings. Like I said, it's like growing pains. Are we going to step up to the plate and evolve, or are we going to stay in this war-like, what's going on in our world right now? I believe that for the most part, it is up to humanity. These extraterrestrials can't do this for us. We are the ones that have to do this. We are the ones that are responsible for our spiritual growth and growth as a civilization. They can't do it for us. We have to be the ones to do it. They can't just come through here and rescue us. It's almost like a soul lesson for all of humanity, if that makes sense to you.
Sure it does. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I'm with you. But suppose we don't do it.
Well, I'd like to think that we will.
I do too.
I think we're going to make it. I'd like to keep an optimistic viewpoint about this, and my feeling is that I think we're going to make it.
Well, that's always the taste we like to leave in people's mouths is we can do it. Let's pull together, and we can do anything, you know, yes. And we can meet any challenge. That's the thing. Okay,
Absolutely.
Well, Susan, tell us about your work at International Metaphysical University.
Well, I was invited to develop the UFOlogy department back in June of 2009, and I was so honored that they considered me and asked me to take on the challenge of doing it. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of fun. I've had the opportunity to talk with some of the top experts in the world, in the ufology world, and it's just been amazing. So with the way the school is set up with the International Metaphysical University, our ufology department may very well be one of the first in its kind in the world. I can't say for sure, but I believe that it may very well be one of the first of its kind where students can actually get an associate's through doctorate degree specifically in ufology, and I'm just so excited to be a part of it.
Well, that's great. One thing that really impressed me, and I teach there too, but not in the same department, obviously. And I'm not a department head like Susan is, but was that they are working very hard to get accredited. And that means a lot to me. Somebody with my academic background, that means a lot to me. And I wouldn't be, working with them if I didn't think it was a serious operation. And accredited through, I believe it's the Distance Learning Council, and for the U.S. Department of Education. And I think, the first accredited metaphysical school since Aristotle or something. But
probably.
But I think a wonderful step forward for alternative education. So
absolutely.
How about in your own work? What are you working on right now?
Well, in my own work, I'm still, working my practice here in Columbus as a psychic medium, and I am working on developing the ufology curriculum, which is pretty much complete. I've got most of my instructors. I still have a few that I need to bring in, but I have most of my instructors in place from the associates through master's level. So I'm thinking by the April quarter, we should really have the majority of the ufology program in place.
Excellent.
And up and running and ready for students to take classes. I would like to let the listeners know that we have an open enrollment policy now that we put into place just recently where if you want to just come in and take a class from a certain instructor, students can do that, and they don't have to apply for the full degree. And then if you choose at some place down the line to go ahead and go for the full degree, any classes that you've already taken will apply toward that. So, there are just, we've got over 100 instructors. It is such an impressive list of every program that is involved. We've got consciousness studies, we've got paranormal studies, we've got our ufology department, we've got shamanic anthropology, we've got energy medicine, we've got intuitive arts, and I think I've covered all the bases there. But have you seen the list of instructors lately, Paul? Have you looked at it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, just in your department. You got Stan Friedman and people of that caliber.
Oh, yeah, we've got Barbara Lamb.
Yep.
We've got Paula Harris. We've got Rebecca Hardcastle, Jim Maroney. There are just so many that we have on. I could sit here and name names forever, but check out the website. Check out the intermetu.com website and have a look at what we're doing, because and as far as the accreditation process goes, our chief academic instructor, Steve Russell, is an expert at the accreditation process, and he's taken several universities and colleges through the process successfully. So I think that we've got a really great shot when the time comes that we can actually apply for it. The school has to be up and running for a certain period of time before we can actually apply for it, but I think we've got a great shot with it. Because,
excellent.
we're following in the parameters so that we can apply for this successfully.
Excellent. Hey, I teach science, religion, and the paranormal if anybody's interested in that.
Yeah.
But Susan, it's been a tremendous pleasure to have you with us, and best of luck in your work, and we'll have you back. I hope many times.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And it's been very interesting. Thanks for your, thanks for everything you've done for us. Appreciate it. And good luck at IMU. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, folks, we have one or two other unrelated emails here I thought we'd have a few minutes to get into. This is a question on parasites from Barbara F. in San Francisco. Ben, if you take it away.
Has Paul ever met a paranormal entity that he liked? Perhaps something that intrigued him into a different approach to research, or showed an advanced intellect worthy of admiration?
Well, that's what I get for concentrating so much on the negative side.
Yes.
Well, Barbara, I can tell you that if you tune into our CBS show on Sunday night on March 24th, you'll get a big yes to that question, that there are plenty of paranormal entities I like. And we're going to be talking about, it'll be another show on the positive aspects of the paranormal, paranormal love and beauty, to be specific. I always believe there are many more friends out in the multiverse, as I call it, or as Dr. Deutsch calls it, than there are negative entities. I think that we essentially have a leg up from some of them. I think many of them are simply us. We, I believe, can be even our own guardian angels, because the secret of this whole thing is that we're alive in many, many, many of these different worlds, because it's all a great oneness, and that we have a certain unity, certainly with ourselves. And that there have been times when, in my own life, there have been experiences of a son who was never born to my wife and me, and it was extremely beautiful. And maybe we'll talk about that during that show. But so yes, there are plenty of entities I like. I don't necessarily consider them all enemies, not by a long shot. So that's hopefully will answer your question there, Barbara. And now here's one. I don't know, Ben, can you do an Australian accent? This is from our friend Mark Bell in Sydney, and he's got a question here.
Maybe. I can't. I'm not good with Australian accents.
No, you don't have to do
I could try.
No. Do the good day.
Good day, guys. I love your show. It raises many intriguing concepts. I wrote some months ago about people using their young children as conduits to the paranormal. I'm glad you took the subject seriously, and thanks for listening to my 2 cents worth. I have a hypothetical for you. Then there's a thing there. Could it be possible all these parasites could be shaman in another dimension, just doing their shaman thing, or even cultists practicing their magic just as shaman and cultists do in our dimension? And could it be possible that they don't know what the repercussions of their practices are having on or in the surrounding dimensions? Thanks for an excellent, thought-provoking show. Keep up the good work, guys.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that question, Mark. That's a very good question, and it has been asked several other times. Could some of these entities that we run into, or that anybody runs into, who seem to be interdimensional, could they be just people? I believe they are people, a lot of them, and some are not people in our sense.
So little humanity left that, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Well, also, you look at the case in Connecticut, Donna's case, Donna being one of our show reporters, who is in the middle of a case of her own. That's why we don't use her last name. And she's got all kinds of entities tramping through her house, horses running down the hallway. She's got unidentifiable species, so they're just walking through, tall, 8-foot tall human type figures, humanoids of various types. And could they be, as Mark asks, shaman or other beings or other adepts going about their business in these other universes? Well, I think a lot of times that may be true, but a lot of times not, because many of these creatures show no interest whatsoever in, or no indication that they even notice the family in this particular house or in many other houses. And I think that we sort of rub shoulders with these people all the time, with these beings, and there's no harm done. It's just the nature of the multiverse. It's like Swiss cheese. But I think at times, certainly we talk to our own shaman, and I've learned a lot from shamans here in my own work. They will talk about going from from this world into another world, to do what needs to be done, to bring it closer to what someone who is employing them needs. And I think we all need to do this. But I think they do talk about this, and so I think we see sometimes some of our own shaman, sometimes shaman from other worlds doing this, and I think it's a good point and a good question. I think, yes, we do sometimes see people going about their paranormal work, if you will, or their spiritual work, when we do have experiences of this kind with other beings, either close quarters or at a distance or whatever. And this is something maybe we should have asked about the spirituality of the UFO occupants, as they pass through these worlds. Maybe that's something we should have asked Susan, ask her next time we have her on. So, I think, thanks for the excellent question, Mark, and I think it's a big yes to that. The question is to take things carefully and with caution, because nothing in the paranormal is what it appears to be. And that's something that needs to be understood, because it's not by the people who go in and they make their assumptions that, okay, here's an entity here, it's a spirit of someone who's died. Well, without your body, you're not a complete person. How can you interact as one? These are all questions that I started asking really early. So I think we've got good and bad, and everything has to be taken
with a grain of salt.
With sometimes a pillar of salt. That sort of thing. So there we are. Let's get to one of our announcements here. I wanted to just, I referred to our show reporters, and we had Cindy call in earlier in the show. Go to BehindTheParanormal.com, which is our show website, of course, and there's lots of information about our guests, past and future. 3 different shows on our 3 different networks and stations. And there's also information on becoming a show field reporter. Just click on that, and you'll get some information on it. Don't be intimidated by the number of words there. It just says stuff like, if you become a show reporter, we're not going to be responsible if you go out and fall off a cliff or something. You have to be exercise your personal responsibility. But we are looking for people, and we have 5 now in different parts of the United States, and we're looking for them all over the world. So, Mark, if you're listening, hey, you can be Australia's reporter for us. We're looking for people who are able to go out and get credible information. UFOs, ghosts, anything of this kind, cryptids, any lake monsters, anything of this kind that is occurring in your area, or even not in your area, and to report to us on the show in a manner that is interesting and complete. You could also be willing to do interviews, or you can get as ambitious as you want, but you're invited, anyone who is serious about this, to become a show reporter. So, okay, I guess we're going to finish up here. BehindTheParanormal.com.
Yeah. All right, so if you can't get enough of us, tune in to our regular weekly show tonight at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on CBS Radio HD3 in Boston, Detroit, and Seattle. And CBS's www.newskyradio.com. Check www.BehindTheParanormal.com for full details.
And our guest will be Mary Phelan, expert in signs, omens, and divination. And also, we want to check back here, of course, in chiefradio.com for our end of the month show next month, February 28th, for our next 2-hour special. And our guest will be a shaman, Sandra Ingerman. Funny, we're talking about shamans, and that's what the next show is going to be about. And Sandra Ingerman is also a teacher at IMU, and she is an expert in shamanism and a shaman herself. And she will take us on a journey into that strange world. We had her on our CBS shows. It was a big hit, and we wanted to get her back when we had 2 hours to talk to her. And again, then into that strange world that might just be the real one. So don't miss that either. And again, also tune in to our Saturday show. And next Saturday.
Was I there for that one? Sandra? I don't remember.
I don't think you were, because I wanted to talk about certain things that happened to you during cases that I think are very interesting.
I don't remember. Actually.
You don't mind? Yeah.
I don't.
You missed the show. No. So definitely next month we're going to get into some interesting stuff.
Must have been sick, like you.
Oh, I know. I feel awful right now. I appreciate everybody putting up with my eccentricities tonight. But again, on our show next Saturday on WOON 1240 AM in southeastern New England, and ONworldwide.com. we'll have an interesting show on a subject we haven't talked about in a while, and that's reincarnation. We're going to be talking with Michael Hathaway from the White Mountain Hypnosis Institute in New Hampshire, and we're going to be going into some very interesting cases and some of the meanings of, and some of the things you might not know about what could really be behind the reincarnation phenomenon and many of the experiences that people have. And we first got in touch with him because we've got possible something going on with Ben and me as far as the project is concerned on that subject. We'll tell you more later if it comes to anything. But don't miss Michael Hathaway on next Saturday's show. And there we are. So in the meantime, we want to thank our wonderful producer, Bill Schreiner. And we'll see you back here again, as I say, February 28th on Achieve Radio. Talk with Sandra Ingerman. And what do you think? Should we use this Socrates quote here, Ben?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Well, we got a minute here. So you got any more thoughts on our subject tonight?
Well,
what do you think? You think that everything's happy and fuzzy, or are we going to run into some problems?
Well, you have to find a middle way, but not everybody can find the middle way. It's either really happy or ridiculously depressing.
Yes.
I honestly don't think regular people are ready for this, because obviously the government is going through great lengths to keep this like a secret.
Yeah.
Because, most people can't handle this kind of stuff, especially when they go from something as shallow as watering their lawn to something as deep as intergalactic intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I tend to agree. I don't know. The government originally supposedly kept these things secret because it would have called into question our religious institutions and all the other things that we held dear at the time in the late 1940s, if that was when you're talking about. And but now a lot of that has crumbled. A lot of the institutions that we held dear don't really mean that much anymore. I'm almost sorry to say. Maybe that's good, maybe it's bad. And again, we're used to the Klingons and the Planet of the Apes and all these, whatever, and MST-3000. I mean, how bad, how much crazier can it get? Maybe we'll get used to this. I don't know. But nobody really knows. We'll see, one way or the other.
All
right. Well, we'll leave you with a quote from dear old Socrates tonight. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing.
See you next time.
Well, that's for sure. Okay.
AchieveRadio.com, on PowerHits.com.
When the rain comes pouring down, I turn the page, bring tomorrow. When the cold stays in this heart too long, I turn the page, spring will follow.
AchieveRadio.com.
Welcome to the Law of Distraction and Interruption Show here on AchieveRadio.com. This is Joe Caraccio, creator, host, and author of the Law of Distraction and Interruption. Yeah, another show we're going to embark on. We're going to have two great guests today, and totally opposite guests. Pretty cool. There's no theme to this show. Sometimes we have kind of a theme, but two great guests, both authors and speakers, and that's what we've been doing. We're bringing author-speaker type individuals because we want to really just make this show very interesting and informative as well as fun. Those are my two main goals, and it will be. It definitely will be informative and definitely fun. Talking about the Law of Distraction and Interruption, if you want to know more about it and you're interested in being on the show, well, just check out check out our past interviews here on achieveradio.com. If you're listening, you're here, so you can check out the archives and check out various shows, especially this year, the year 2010, the type of people that we've had on the show. And if you fit in that category, someone who is an author, a speaker, either one or both, write me, joe@azgoodlife.com. joe@azgoodlife.com. Write me and let me know who you are, and would love to entertain having you on the show. It's been interesting, informative, just a lot of fun. Just cool. I'm just having a great time. I hope the people who are listening to the show are having a great time. Distractions and interruptions, they're abounding. Life's distractions, if you allow them, will keep you from achieving your goals and dreams. It's such a truism. It really is. It's a constant, too. Distractions and interruptions are constant in your life, and interruptions either slow you down or completely stop you from what you set out to accomplish. You know, it's not that you're not going to have distractions and interruptions. You're going to have them every day. I've gone through them. This past weekend we've gone through a lot with my girlfriend and also partner in the law of distraction interruption, Chris. Her whole computer just died. You know, that happened to me about a week ago, and major distraction. But you know what? We greeted it. We faced it head on. And got things done, because life goes on. And if you allow these distractions to really keep you down, they will. They will. So you just greet them and just make sure that you do the best you can. Distractions and interruptions in one's life are inevitable. They're inevitable. They will happen every day. It's how you deal with them that define you. They define you and your life. It's how you deal with those distractions and interruptions. Check out the Law of Distraction and Interruption.com. That's my website. The Law of Distraction and Interruption.com. We're always adding things to the website. You can see me sing. Yeah, there's a video of me performing. It's my passion. I love to do it. That's Life is my theme song. I think it's the theme song of many people, if they really pay attention to the lyrics, but it's definitely mine. And I've adopted it. I've adopted it to my program, The Law of Distraction and Interruption. And if you get the chance and you're a writer, you don't have to be an author, by the way. If you're just writing and you want to speak, check out authorsroost.com. I know this is a blatant advertisement, but that's what I'm all about, being blatant, forthright. Check out authorsroost.com. I think you'll appreciate it. Again, it's going to be a great show. I know it is. They always are. These are non-scripted, very little preparation. The authors, they send me some questions sometimes. These two didn't. It's just a lot of fun, and that's what it's all about. So we're going to take a very short intermission. We're going to come back in just a short while, and because it's a short intermission. And we're going to have our first guest come on. Looking forward to it. And I hope you are too. So this is Joe Caraccio. This is the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on achieveradio.com. My favorite internet radio station, and it should be yours too. Again, Joe at azgoodlife.com. That's how you reach me. Joe at azgoodlife.com. This is the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on Achieve Radio. We're going to take a short break, come right back, and we're looking forward, at least I am, to our first guest.
Hello, this is Paul McNeese of OPA Author Services. For a long time, I've believed that every author should be a speaker and every speaker should write. So today, I'm here to let you know that if you're an author or a speaker, trainer, consultant, coach, or seminar leader, there's a new nest being built just for you at AuthorsRoost.com. The Authors Roost is a new concept, a new idea, an Internet membership organization, and a portal website that brings authors, speakers, and experts together with each other, with lots of great information and education, and with their marketplaces, including media all over the country, and with local, regional, and national meeting planners, people who hire speakers every day. The Authors Roost is definitely going to be a place where you can learn and teach and grow by interacting with others who, like you, are willing to share their ideas and experience. So, take a look right now at The Authors Roost, AuthorsRoost.com. I think you'll be very glad you did.
I'm Sarah Evans. Disaster victims need your help. The American Red Cross provides victims of disaster with food, shelter, counseling, and more. Your support for the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund helps victims of thousands of disasters across the country each year. To make a contribution, contact the American Red Cross today. Call 1-800-RED-CROSS or visit www.redcross.org.
Achieve Radio.
Welcome back to the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on AchieveRadio.com. This is Joe Caraccio, host, author, creator of the Law of Distraction and Interruption. My first guest is Jean Adrian. Jean, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Joe. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's great to hear. We've talked before, and it's always a pleasure, and I think it's going to be a great discussion. Let's start out by giving our audience your background, who Jean is, and what you're doing today.
Joe, I am an author like you. I'm a teacher of spirituality, metaphysics, and conscious creation. I'm a radio show host. I have a show that's been on for 3 years now on Voice America's Seventh Wave Network. And I travel around the world teaching the healing modality that I developed called InnerSpeak.
Excellent. So the show, as you know, is all about distractions and interruptions in one's life. And before we went on, you had mentioned to me via email that you had some very recent distractions. So tell us about that and what you did.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I think I'm really loaded for bear for this interview today because my most recent distraction and interruption has to do with manifesting pain in my life.
Oh, good. Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Go further.
I don't do pain. You know, it's against my religion to have pain and sickness in my life. And so what did I do? I manifested really bad back pain in the middle of my back. It came on fairly suddenly and actually came on over the New Year break. And just started building up and kept getting worse and worse and worse. And to the point that I was like, there's something going on here, and it is really distracting me from being able to do what I do and live my life to the fullest. And so I've spent the last 2 weeks really doing some very deep soul-searching and drilling into this thing to figure out why in the heck would I create pain in my life.
Wow, and it's when we've talked before, you had mentioned to me, and it's sometimes. Well, I believe it's sometimes, but that it's so true that we do manifest a lot of our own health problems. So
I think 100% of them.
You might be right there. You might be right. It's I've had it. I know I've met so many people who've had that kind of situation. But why? Let's get back to that. Was there any particular reason you thought that, you needed to have a back problem at this time?
Well, not consciously. Let's put it that way. Not consciously for sure. And what I found when I started really drilling into this was that it wasn't just one particular reason. It was a layer upon layer of reasons. And so the first thing that I did was I pulled out my trusty Louise Hays Heal Your Body book, where she goes into what are the thoughts and the emotional components behind any or all diseases, and she lists them all out alphabetically so that you can go find what you've manifested, and you can see what the thought process was that might have contributed to creating it. So the place is my middle back, and so when I went and looked it up, it said guilt over the past. And I was like, well, gee, I don't do guilt either. That's another one that's against my religion. To me, I think that guilt is, if there is such a thing as sin, guilt probably is right at the top of the list of the things that that create, that you might want to call sin. So. Anyway, I started trying to analyze that. I started doing, my own work, inner speak, so that I could sort of get down into it. And I found layers. I found the most recent one, and actually the one that I got to that started making the pain go away was something that happened when I was 7 years old that had to do with my younger brother.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was that old. And it went back to not feeling good enough, low self-image, low self-worth. I was 7 years old. My brother was 2. And I was jealous of the fact that he had these beautiful, long, curling eyelashes. Everybody always commented on how my brother's eyes were so beautiful. So one afternoon when my parents left the two of us alone and said, be good and don't move away from in front of the TV while we do whatever we're doing, out in the yard or whatever, I went and got my mother's eyelash curlers, and I told my brother that I was curling his eyelashes, and I put his eyelashes in the curlers, and I cut the eyelashes off.
Oh, goodness. Well, yeah, that's what kids would do.
And I got thanked for that one in the worst way. But, that was one of those old guilty things from my past that was stuck in my back. And I have to tell you, there were about 15 of them, different things. That's just the funniest one. So I had to find them so I could let them go. But pain is an awful distraction.
It is. I've mentioned to so many people about health as if you're in good health, you don't even think about it. But once you have a problem with health, and you hit on a big one, myself included, we have back issues. And I like the idea of reasoning why we have back issues, because I've never looked at it that way very personally. But we have back issues, and we just can't work. We start to, how do I function? Can't sit down, can't stand up, can't lie down. So it really does affect you.
Well, and in my work, how I look at the back is your uprightness. It's your authority. And so when you're having issues with your back, something is impinging on your personal authority and your uprightness, your integrity. In the Louise Hays book that I mentioned, and for your listeners who might be interested in this more, it's Louise Hays Heal Your Body. And in this book, if you have low back problems, it's generally related to fears and worries about money.
Well, you know what? You're making me a believer because I think I find that is true. It really is. It's amazing. Yeah, and we both know who Louise Hays is, but tell our audience a little bit about Louise Hays and who she really is, because a lot of people know that name, especially Hays House. But since we talk to people, I talk to people who all walks of life, some spiritual, some not, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. I really don't care as long as it's an interesting discussion. But I think it would be good to tell our audience a little bit about who Louise Hays is.
Sure. Yeah. Back in the 60s, she was a nurse. And I'm not really quite sure what led her into this, but or maybe it was the 70s. But anyway, she began through her nursing, she began in talking to patients that she was working with to start finding synchronicities and similarities between their disease and what was going on in their life. And so she began to document these things. She did some marvelous work in the 70s working with AIDS patients and getting down to what were their thought processes and their belief systems. And when she was able to get to the core issues that they had, she actually had success in healing people with AIDS. And so that's where she started becoming famous, and she couldn't find anybody to publish her works, and so she published her own books because she felt, that it was important to get this stuff out. Just, no different than you and I, wanted to get our message out, and from that has grown Hay House.
Right.
She's become one of the most renowned spiritual and metaphysical publishing houses in the world.
I think that the key thing, and again, in my opinion, that is, I've always said this, there's a balance in everything. And people should not, people can do what they're going to do, but my belief is they should not rule out anything. Metaphysics is just a very interesting thing to me. I've got involved with it for the last 6-7 years. The holistic world I've got involved with. Yet I understand the need and the importance of traditional, if we want to call it that, medicine. I don't even think it's called traditional, more Western medicine.
Yes,
you need a balance, and I just put that to anybody who's listening to this show. Open your mind. I'm not saying believe in anything we're talking about and say, oh yeah, sure. But if you read and try to find out, you'll see that, especially in the last decade, medical doctors, the MDs, have actually started saying about things like stress. The stress kills. Years ago, they didn't believe it. And it was so many things about, and you mentioned on the onset about unconscious. There are so many things in the unconscious mind that affect you. So it'd be great if people start researching these things instead of just live with pain or live with this great distraction of not being healthy, and maybe find something that they could help themselves with, rather than just going out to a doctor and taking pills. I mean, that's the worst thing, I believe. There's a place for everything.
It's a Band-Aid. It treats the symptom. But, you can take pills, you can have surgery, but if you don't get to the root cause, the dis-ease is still in your field somewhere, and it will manifest again until you figure out the root cause on it and let that part go and heal that, release that old wound is what I call it in my work. And once you do that, you can be cured, sometimes through your mind, sometimes with the help of a medical doctor. Don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily rule out the place of today's modern medicine in the equation. But you've got to find the root cause, and I think that modern medicine sometimes just tends to jump to, well, let's just cut it out, or let's just give you pills or whatever, and that doesn't fix the problem. It just Band-Aids it.
You are absolutely right, and it happens more than not. I mean, and that's the sad part. It's too easy to go take this drug. I mean, and we know that we live in a world, especially in our country here, where drugs rule. I mean, we're talking about a tremendous amount of money, tremendous amount of business, and whether we believe it or not, sometimes very unethical, because it's like, look, we're inundated. Watch TV, you hear the radio, internet, anywhere. We're inundated with commercials for drugs that most of the time, when you look at it, you don't even know what they're trying to sell. They paint this great picture. Yeah, it looks good.
You listen to that, the last half of every one of those commercials, and they'll spend, probably as many seconds as they were talking about the good parts of whatever the medication is, as many seconds as they have for that, they have that many seconds telling you what all the side effects are.
Yeah, isn't that, I've heard a comedian talk about that and say, I'll never take another drug because now I listen to the what happens to you as a side effect, and it's worse than taking the drug. And in some cases, I mean, of course, they're saying it doesn't happen a lot and it's minimal, and we just have to say this because that's their out. But the fact is, it does happen, and you take one drug to cure a simple thing, and I wouldn't say it's simple, but lower my cholesterol. But at the same time, I get a blood clot and die. So I say it's like, oh well, at least my cholesterol was low. But you're absolutely right, and I appreciate what you said, and we've been in sync with this. Is that the balance is, and I said it before, the balance is what's important. Don't rule out anything, but also get some knowledge, get some education. And we've got this beautiful thing we're talking over today called the Internet. Now, I'm not saying also believe everything you read, but you get different information and go out there. Knowledge is king. And I know that's what you're all about, too. It's spiritual, but it's also knowledge is king. And boy, when we're not healthy, major distraction in our lives, major. Yeah. So before we go any further, it just dawned on me, your website. How do people reach you and your website and know about all the great things you're doing?
Well, absolutely. My website is www.jeanadrienne.com, JeanAdrienne.com. And
Excellent.
When they go out on my website, if they will just take a moment and sign up for my newsletter, I'm happy to send them a free copy of a beautiful 28-minute guided meditation. It's got music, and it's a great tool, and I'll send it out for free. All you got to do is sign up for my newsletter.
That's excellent. And I'm just a big advocate of meditating, and we do that in many, many forms, and this is a great way to start if you have it out there. People just, again, misconceptions. I've met so many people, especially in the conservative world, and I deal with that all the time, the 9-to-5 people who say, I haven't got time to meditate, because they think you have to go into this room for 2 hours with a candle. That's the only way you're going to be able to meditate. And it's not true. You can meditate every day and make it part of your your overall functionality. And it does help. Boy, I'm a big advocate, major advocate.
Absolutely, and I do some of my best meditation driving in my car. I don't turn on the radio in my car because that's another one of those gigantic distraction and interruptions. So when I'm driving, and Atlanta, I live in Atlanta, I live outside of Atlanta, but Atlanta is huge, and to get anywhere, you've got to travel sometimes 30, 45 minutes in pretty heinous traffic. So I just meditate when I'm driving, and it really, really helps me a lot. I don't get uptight about the traffic. I don't let that become one of those distractions for me or interruptions, and it's a great place to do it.
I love it. You've put me into a situation here that I want to ask you. What do you do? Because this is great. Everywhere in our country, any metropolitan area, Phoenix, where we originate from, you're always in traffic. You have to take your car almost everywhere. How do you do that? Because I don't want people to think you're going to fall asleep at the wheel. So how do you meditate? How do you focus on that when you're driving?
What I do is, my eyes are open, and there's a part of my brain, which would be, the left brain, is constantly vigilant, and it's constantly, making sure that I have my car in between the white lines, and that I stop for traffic lights, and I watch out for cars. But the subconscious mind, which operates out of the right brain, is the one that I make it a clean slate. And I just, I just open my mind, and I get very relaxed, and nothing bothers me.
That's excellent. That is excellent.
Yeah, so I'm kind of on autopilot, but it's a vigilant autopilot, and then the rest of it is just letting my mind be the witness, and and thoughts will flow through my mind, and I acknowledge them and just let them go. And then another one will come through, and I let them go. And, and so for me, gone are the days when I have to swear at the people who are driving in what I think to be less than intelligent ways, because it doesn't really matter. I just give them a wider berth.
I love it. Less intelligent ways. Yes, very good. You're very kind. We have other names for those people, but that's okay. Yeah.
And I used to call them those.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes I resort to that. I have to admit, I'm pretty even keeled now, and everybody who knows me says that. He says, "Well, you're really a calm person. Were you always that way?" I go, "No, I wasn't."
I think we learn this over time.
Yes.
Because the other way doesn't really serve us. All it does is just make more stress, which then leads to more pain, and then another distraction.
Yeah, and you know what? It just who gets hurt? Just us. Just the individual's the only one who really gets hurt when you go through all that stuff. That is very, very true.
Exactly.
But it's a learning process. No matter how old you are, no matter where you are, it's a learning process. So true. And writings, you mentioned too. You are an author. Talk a little bit about that. Your writings and how people. Well, we know how people could access that through your website. Yeah. And we're going to say it again, but talk about your books.
Okay, I've written 4 books, and I'm working on the 5th one. The first one is called Soul Adventures, and it's autobiographical, and it's really kind of my story about how I grew up in a dysfunctional family and managed to grow up and remember who I really was and start claiming my own power and creating my own reality. So that would be Soul Adventures. The next book I wrote, because then I developed a healing modality called Interspeak pretty much right after that, and so I wrote a little ebook called Interspeak for Everyone, and that teaches you how to do this process. It's a muscle testing based process, so I teach how to muscle test and how to use the Interspeak process to clear away the blocks that are holding you back in any area of your life. And then the third book I wrote was a sequel to Soul Adventures. I call it Mayan Soul Adventures, and it's fictional unless, of course, it isn't. Some of the stuff that happened to me about the time I was writing that book, and that is the basis for the book, was so bizarre that nobody would really believe it was true. So that one is a fiction book. And then the 4th book, which came out a year and a half ago, is called Reframe Your World. Conscious Living in the New Reality. And Reframe Your World is about learning how to think outside the box. It's a more mainstream book, and it gives you 16 lessons and 16 tools to change the way you look at the world so that when you change your perception, you actually change your reality. And that one is published not only in English but also in Dutch as well. And wow. The one I'm working on now is called Manna, and it's going to be about, step by step, how to do instant manifestation in your life and become consistent with it.
Wow, excellent, excellent. Perception, we've heard that so many times about perception is reality, and it's so true. Reality is what people perceive, so I like the book you talked about. As a matter of fact, you have some really good stuff there. And your work, you do a lot of work helping people and then guiding them, coaching them, so that's excellent too. We have less than a minute and a half left. We all know that it goes quick when you're having a wonderful discussion like this. First off, again, mention your website and then whatever you'd like to say.
Okay. Well, my website, again, is Jean Adrienne, JeanAdrienne.com. And I guess my parting thought that I would want to leave with your audience is that when you take responsibility for your life, then and only then can you start to create the reality that you deserve. You've got to let go of the thought that there are such things as victims, because that is an illusion. So we're not anybody's victim. We create everything that happens. I created the pain in my back. So we're responsible for creating the distractions and interruptions, and once you realize that, then you can let them go and have smooth sailing. So
true. Take responsibility. It's great. Jean, thank you again for being on the show. We'll be in touch. Actually, I'll be talking to you later this year, so it'll be great.
That's right. I'm looking forward to having you on my show. All right, Joe. Have a great one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care now. Have a great day.
Okay.
This is the Law. Thank you. This is the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on AchieveRadio.com. Just a cool discussion. We're going to take a short break. Come right back.
Encouragement, empowerment, enlightenment. AchieveRadio.com.
Hidden deep within you is an unstoppable power. If you want to deepen your relationships, supercharge your productivity, and enjoy more life energy than you've felt in years, then visit LetNothingStopYou.org to learn more about Secrets of Being Unstoppable by Guy Finley. This new audio program will give you the knowledge you need to enjoy the happiness and success your heart longs for. That's Guy Finley's Secrets of Being Unstoppable at LetNothingStopYou.org.
Hi, this is Joe Caraccio, host of the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on AchieveRadio.com. If you are an author, writer, or speaker, there's a great new resource website for you at AuthorsRoost.com. That's AuthorsRoost.com. AuthorsRoost.com brings communicators of the written and spoken word together with each other and their marketplaces. AuthorsRoost.com is a membership organization where you can learn, teach, grow professionally, and, of course, market yourself to the world. Right now, AuthorsRoost.com is running a very special program, so don't be distracted. Take a look at it right now. AuthorsRoost.com. AuthorsRoost.com, the resource site for authors, writers, and speakers. AuthorsRoost.com. Welcome back to the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on AchieveRadio.com. This is Joe Caraccio, your host of the Law of Distraction and Interruption. My next guest is Nick Redfern. Nick, how are you doing today?
Hey, Joe. I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Before we continue, tell our audience who Nick is, your background, and what you're doing.
Okay. Well, when I finished school, I finished my education back in England. I now live in Dallas. But I became a journalist, and throughout my, teens onwards, I developed an interest in things like UFOs, Bigfoot, or what's commonly known as weird stuff. And I thought, in my early 20s, why not try and combine the work in journalism with researching and writing about weird phenomena. And so that's basically what I do. I sort of travel around investigating everything from Bigfoot to lake monsters to the chupacabras to UFOs.
Well, I love it because I'm a major fan, and I'm not kidding, of the things you're talking about. So we got a lot to talk about. And you are an author. Tell us about the books you've written or writing or in the process of.
Yeah, I've written about 15 or 16 books altogether, several on Bigfoot. One which focuses quite heavily on the chupacabras, a couple on conspiracy theories, and quite a few on UFOs. And I have a new book out right now called Contactees, which is kind of a controversial story because it deals with people around the world who claim to have actually met aliens face to face. So, it's sort of, the really, the far out angle of the UFO subject more than anything else.
Let's talk about that a little, because I think a lot of the things that you're involved with are distractions to a lot of people. I don't think so. I think personally they're very interesting, and I keep an open mind about everything. But let's talk about third encounters. They refer to, although I've heard people now say a fourth encounter. I said, oh, okay. I guess people have to... Go ahead, please.
Okay, sure. Yeah, basically, there's the sort of different types, obviously, of UFO encounters. And the term close encounters of the third kind from the famous film was actually coined by a former U.S. Air Force UFO investigator who investigated UFOs officially for the Air Force, named Dr. J. Allen Hynek. And he classified UFOs, if you have a sighting at a distance, that's a first kind. A case at a closer level is a second kind, and then, if there's some sort of interaction, that's the third kind, and the fourth kind is allegedly being taken on board a craft. But, I've always been fascinated by reports of alien contact because, UFO sightings are very interesting, but there's not much you can do about them, other than the fact that Mr. Jones saw a blue light in the sky. It's interesting, but it doesn't really answer the mystery. So what I tried to do with the new book was to go to the people who've actually claimed face-to-face contact. And, we hear a lot about, for example, alien abductions, where this sort of general scenario of people being, treated almost like we would treat a lab rat, being taken on board a craft and subjected to medical experimentation. And, what I found interesting in doing the research, for example, I interviewed, people from all walks of life and related the accounts of people, one of a police officer, one who worked in New Mexico at the top-secret White Sands missile range, and, in other words, people who we would trust with having, I guess, sort of sound sensibilities and being very grounded, but talking about weird experiences of, missing time and being taken on a UFO and prodded, poked, and even DNA removed from them, which, sounds kind of outrageous and controversial until you realize, wow, this is coming from someone, working within the U.S. military itself. So.
Isn't it so that, from your experience, being involved with this a long time, that there is this, I don't want to call it conspiracy, but this theory that our governments, and it's plural, but our governments know all about UFOs. They've dealt with it, but they just want to keep it quiet and keep it that it really doesn't happen because they feel there might be mass hysteria, there might be problems with the rest of the world. Isn't that? Do you find that?
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's a government interest in the subject. And actually, that's how I got involved, is that my dad I worked on radar in the British Royal Air Force and was involved in several incidents when really fast-moving objects were tracked approaching the English coast. This was back in the 50s. And nobody knew what these things were. Aircraft were sent up to try and intercept them, and they couldn't even get close. And these, I guess, invasions went on over the course of about 3 nights, and eventually everybody in the room was told not to talk about it under any circumstances. And my dad didn't tell anyone until he told me when I was probably about 14 or 15, and that's what really got me interested. And, when you talk about the secrecy angle, it kind of hits home the points to me that, regardless of who the story is coming from my own father, someone trained to work on radar within the military was talking about UFO encounters. And so the more I dug into it, the more I found that, yes, agencies throughout the years have looked into the subject quite deeply. And you can now use the Freedom of Information Act to get a hold of a lot of the FBI's and the CIA's old files, which show they viewed the subject very seriously, chiefly because they were getting a lot of reports from the military. And I do think there's a degree of secrecy, but where I differ from a lot of UFO researchers, I'm not sure the government has all the answers. I think a lot of the secrecy stems from the fact that they may have a lot of information, but not a lot of answers as to what these things are or where they're coming from. And I think it's the fear of admitting that something's going on and they don't really have a handle on it is sometimes worse than actually knowing all the answers.
So, in your opinion, all right, well, I think most people of any intelligence are going to agree there's something, because it's been, they can rule out as much as they want, they meaning government, military, anything else, and they'll come up with excuses. But there's always a percentage that they cannot rule out at all, so that gives a good opportunity to say, hey, there's something there. In your opinion, what do you think it is? Is there, aliens visiting us? Is there experiments going on? What do you think it is? And only opinion.
Well, I think it's actually a combination of several things. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that when we look at UFO reports, I would say a good 80%, probably more, we can discount as misidentification of things like satellites, planets, wreckage re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, decaying satellites, that sort of thing, or meteors. But when you get rid of the mistaken identities and the hoaxes, you are left with this small percentage of reports that are kind of really weird and where the witnesses are very, very credible. And I think there's probably 2 things going on. I think some UFOs probably are secret military experiments. For example, you look at the stealth bomber, which looks really weird. If somebody had seen that before it was officially unveiled, they would think they were seeing a UFO. So I'm quite sure that the government's flying some strange things around now that are still on the secret list and haven't been disclosed to the public. And I think they're probably quite happy for people to think they're UFOs, because if somebody sees them by mistake, the whole little green men angle acts as a good cover. But in saying that, when you go back and find very old reports from the 40s and 50s of these things, UFOs performing all sorts of strange, fantastic high-speed maneuvers, when we clearly weren't flying anything like that back then, I do think a very small percentage, very small, is kind of indicative of a genuine UFO presence. Now, I wish I could say who they are, where they're from, and what they want, but beyond... that's difficult to say beyond the fact that I think there's a genuine phenomenon and it's sort of moving amongst us, probably in a similar way that, we go out into the wilds and, we tag wild animals and knock them out and do experiments on them and let them go. It's something along those lines, maybe.
That's a good analogy, and I appreciate what you said too, because we've had many people believe that especially the United States government, is already talking to the aliens and they're doing all kinds of stuff together. But I appreciate what you said. I think you're right on track. But you led me to something too, and you said on the onset, Bigfoot. I mean, we've had so many talking about the Getty, the Bigfoot, or whatever people want to call it. So, what did you find out in your research about that phenomena?
Yeah, this is one of the areas I suppose I dig into more than UFOs. I'm sort of the whole issue of weird animals. And that actually goes back to my childhood when I went to Loch Ness when I was a kid and spent a day up there. And, when you're sort of a young kid and you hear stories that there's a monster or a colony of them living in this deep, mysterious-looking loch, again, it kind of fires up your imagination. And so... I began to dig further into this, and I've done a lot of Bigfoot investigations around the United States in some of the larger forests where people, claim to have seen these things. And again, I don't doubt that some cases are probably misidentifications of bears and things like this. But again, as with the UFO subject, when you speak to, as I've done, police officers and park rangers, again, who claim to have seen Bigfoot-type, hairy 7-8 foot tall creatures in the woods, and they're not actually looking for publicity, etc. You have to wonder what would sort of motivate them to create a hoax. And again, I come down with the witnesses. I think witness testimony is the most important thing, and I found that the more I dig into it, you have to be have a good ability to judge characters, etc. And people's motivations. And, when you, as I've done, sat opposite a police officer who said he was on duty in the early hours of the morning in the forests of Washington State outside of Seattle and saw this literally like a 7-foot-tall hairy thing lumbering across the road, but said, please, under no circumstances, don't ever use my name. Again, you have to wonder what would prompt somebody to relate that sort of story if it wasn't true. Right. Because there's no gain out of it. So I think, again, when we put together the body of evidence and the reports, something's going on. But, you look at some of the huge forests on the Pacific Northwest, they're hundreds and hundreds of square miles, and unless you're in the right place at the right time, and most people, of course, aren't doing something crazy like I do, running around looking for Bigfoot. So they're not out there looking for these things, in other words. So right. I think it's not surprising that we haven't necessarily found them yet, or proved their existence, I should say.
Right. Yeah, and we've seen all kinds of videos on it, and people say it's hoaxes. Yeah. And you know what? It's an interesting thing about our world, in general, is that there is so much of our world, this planet, that is not touched. That people just assume, because you hear all the time, we're running out of space for people, and going, really? I don't think so. There's plenty of forests and deserts, and it goes on and on and on. And why not? Why wouldn't there be some other type of animal that may look a little strange to us roaming around? So, I think people really, they just like the sci-fi part of it. We have to have movies and horror films about it.
Well, I think there is a good argument for saying that people love mysteries. I understand that. A lot of people don't want the world just to be black and white. People kind of enjoy the fact that there could be weird things out in the woods or in the lakes or up in the skies or wherever because, I suppose from a psychological perspective, it takes us away from the mundane world. But equally, that doesn't mean these things aren't actually out there as well. I think there is evidence that they are. And I think also with things like Bigfoot, whatever they are, there clearly aren't millions of them out there, or we would have found them. You know, I suspect that whatever they are, they're probably on like a evolutionary decline, and there may not even be that many left. And, you know, it'd be kind of ironic if they went extinct before we actually prove they exist. So.
Right. And that's a very, very good point there. I like that, because it's, and there's some things that they're discovering now, even deep in the oceans, that were supposedly extinct, but they're not. They're still there, and that's another whole aspect of research that just intrigues me too. Is that again? Us human beings just take a lot for granted. It's amazing. We're sometimes, I think, a little too much involved with ourselves, and we believe that things like this don't happen. Interesting stuff. Now, you had mentioned that you're in Dallas now. You're still traveling all over the world, all over the globe to investigate this information?
I do a lot of investigations. I just recently filmed an episode of the History Channel's Monster Quest series up in Wisconsin, where, I don't know if you've ever heard of the film The Mothman Prophecies. It's all about this sort of huge winged creature that was seen in the 1960s. And there have been similar recent reports in Wisconsin. So I went trekking up the mountains in Wisconsin looking for this creature with the team from the History Channel. And I do a lot of this sort of, traveling around, because I think the Internet's a great resource tool, but it's not going to, you're not going to find Bigfoot on the Internet. You're just going to find information. So I think it's essential to actually get out into the field and kind of get your hands dirty and camp out and take your equipment and try and find it that way, because if we don't look for it, I know Bigfoot's not going to come to us. So.
That's excellent. That's good. Again, here we are on the Internet. It's great. We're having fun, and we believe that it should be enjoyable, but also educational. That makes it all worthwhile. But you know what? You got to get off your butt and go out and do something too. You can't just sit by your computer all the time, and that's so important. And I do it, and people don't think I do it, but I do. I'm exercising, running around, enjoying life as well as doing.
You got to do it. If you don't, you develop diabetes and die young from not doing anything. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's not good. And I was talking to my first guest about health, and that's very distracting. Very distracting. You got to stay healthy. What would be the most I don't want to say interesting, but wildest thing that you discovered or came across? Because you followed a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I'd say probably the strangest, for me at least, is the expeditions I've been on to Puerto Rico looking for the so-called chupacabras, this weird creature that supposedly sucks the blood out of farm animals. And it's described as having like a monkey-like body but hairless and with all spikes down its head and neck that I describe it as looking like a punk rock mohawk haircut or something like that. But this is a very weird creature that's been reported from Puerto Rico for a number of years, and there have been reports in the U.S. in more recent years as well. What it is, I have no real idea, but, I mean, a lot of the eyewitnesses talk about like a very fast-moving, monkey-like creature that seems to be able to attack its prey and kill them pretty much in an instant, a very sort of stealthy predator. So that's one of the strangest investigations I've been on, is, the trips looking for that in Puerto Rico.
Wow. So did you come across one, or are you still looking?
Well, personally, I didn't. I'm not sure if I'd still be here if I did come across one, but I spoke to a lot of good witnesses. Again, people in the official world. I spoke with a civil defense worker in the Puerto Rican government civil defense unit who'd actually been tasked with investigating reports for the Puerto Rican military. And he was convinced that, the ranchers and the cops he'd spoken with who'd seen these creatures were being honest and genuine. But he had no idea what the creature was, other than that there shouldn't be anything on Puerto Rico that looks like this. For the most part, you've got pigs, cattle, sheep, that sort of thing, goats, but nothing that's sort of like a flesh-eating, marauding monkey.
Right. Wasn't there something similar in Mexico? Besides one of these things?
Yeah, there's been reports of the chupacabra from Mexico, from Latin America, South America, Puerto Rico, the United States. A lot of reports actually from here in Texas, which is kind of convenient living in Dallas because I can just jump in the car and, chase them down, so to speak. But I think in some cases, I think it's the term chupacabras has become like a legendary term. So if anybody wakes up and finds their farm animals dead, the local media is, we've got a chupacabras in our area, and they're kind of rubbing their hands together because it's a great media story.
Yeah,
I think that happens,
absolutely.
I think that happens as well.
There's been a lot of sci-fi movies about it. I've seen a lot of sci-fi movies about it. It's really funny. But
some good and some not so good.
Your website, very important. How do people find you and get some good information?
Well, my website, Joe, is nickredfern.com. So that's an easy one. NICKREDFERN. And I've got a lot of blogs, my own blogs linked at the site where I update all the latest news on what I'm doing, and I do a lot of book reviews and interviews with people and post those to the sites and the blogs as well. So.
Right. So what is the most strangest close encounter that you've had?
Well, I'd say for me personally, I guess you could call this a really close encounter. There was a person earlier this year who claimed to have shot a chupacabras in Texas, and I actually was given the skull of the animal, and DNA checks were done on it, and it proves that it was some sort of weird dog-type animal. But when I looked at the original photographs, it was like a very strange-looking hairless dog. The front legs were far shorter than the back legs, and they should be. So it had like a hopping movement like a kangaroo. So there's no doubt that it's a dog-type animal, but it's like a mutated dog in some respects. And there's been a lot of these seen in Texas, and it seems to be almost the case that there's like an offshoot, a genetic mutation occurring in the wild dogs of Texas that's, having an effect on the animals. And so I've got the skull sitting on my bookcase right now, which doesn't always please my wife when she walks past it. So.
Regular sci-fi channel. I love it. Well, Nick, it's been great. I have a lot of fun. Really been very interesting speaking to you today. I really appreciate you being on the show.
All right, sure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you very much. Nick Redfern, and just like the name, the website, nickredfern.com. Thank you again for being on the Law of Distraction Interruption Show.
Thanks.
Okay, have a great day. This is Joe Caraccio, of course, the Law of Distraction Interruption Show here on AchieveRadio.com. Very interesting. We're having just a bunch of great guests come on, authors and speakers, and just having a fun time. We're going to take a short break, come back, and wrap up the show again. It goes pretty quick. And two very interesting guests, right? And very different. Again, Law of Distraction Interruption Show here on AchieveRadio.com. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Paul McNeese of OPA Author Services. For a long time, I've believed that every author should be a speaker and every speaker should write. So today, I'm here to let you know that if you're an author or a speaker, trainer, consultant, coach, or seminar leader, there's a new nest being built just for you at www.authorsroost.com. The Authors Roost is a new concept, a new idea, an internet membership organization, and a portal website that brings authors, speakers, and experts together with each other with lots of great information and education, and with their marketplaces, including media all over the country, and with local, regional, and national meeting planners, people who hire speakers every day. The Authors Roost is definitely going to be a place where you can learn and teach and grow by interacting with others who, like you, are willing to share their ideas and experience. So, take a look right now at The Authors Roost, www.authorsroost.com. I think you'll be very glad you did.
Hi folks, this is Paul Eno, co-host of Behind the Paranormal here on Achieve Radio. We're very pleased to have as our sponsor New River Press and Barking Cat Books, publishers of some of the most unusual New Age titles on the market today. Along with 4 books by moi, New River Press offers the blockbuster on animal communication, Hear All Creatures, The Journey of an Animal Communicator by Karen Anderson, Shadows on My Shift, real-life stories of a psychic EMT by psychic medium Sherry Lee Devereaux, Achieve Radio talk show host of Opening Your Intuitive Eyes. And in a true story that will break your heart with its beauty, especially if you've ever lost a child, there's 41 Signs of Hope by Dave Kane, about the ongoing love and communication between a father and a mother and their son, youngest victim of the 2003 nightclub fire in Rhode Island. Finally, from Barking Cat Books, don't miss the action-adventure that spans 1,000 years, Heaven's Wave, a novel of the doomsday prophecy of 2012 by Dierlein. Visit newriverpress.com, barkingcatbooks.com, amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore.
Achieve Radio.
Welcome back to the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on AchieveRadio.com. This is Joe Caraccio wrapping up another show, putting it in the can, as they say. Well, that's an old term. The Law of Distraction and Interruption. It's just amazing how people are receiving it. It is realized by people that it is a constant. That is distractions and interruptions. They're a constant, and people are catching on and realizing that I'm a great advocate of the law of attraction. This is not a negative situation. This is not an opposite, but it's a balanced approach. Basically a balanced approach to the law of attraction, the law of distraction and interruption, because that's what stops people from achieving their goals, distractions and interruptions. And I said on the onset of the show that distractions and interruptions are inevitable, and they are. They're inevitable. But it's how you deal with distractions and interruptions that define you and your life. It's how you deal with them. When problems occur, they're distractions. Health problems, technology, anything that distracts you from achieving what you set out to do, anything that interrupts your life, that's how you deal with it. And believe me, there's a lot of distractions in life. It happens to me. It happens to you. It's how you deal with it. Take responsibility for all you do. Learn from the past. Have faith in yourself. And move forward with a very positive attitude. Focus. Manage your time. It's all about time management. You just try not to be distracted. But it's focusing and managing your time. This is Joe Caraccio. This is the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on Achieve Radio. Until next time, I just wish everyone health and prosperity. This is tough times, but keep your head above water. It'll get better. It always does. Okay, next time, Law of Distraction and Interruption show. Thank you.
Well, I roll myself up in a big ball and
Achieve Radio.
Hi, this is Joe Caraccio, host of the Law of Distraction and Interruption show here on AchieveRadio.com. If you are an author, writer, or speaker, there's a great new resource website for you at AuthorsRoost.com. That's AuthorsRoost.com. AuthorsRoost.com brings communicators of the written and spoken word together with each other and their marketplaces. AuthorsRoost.com is a membership organization where you can learn, teach, grow professionally, and, of course, market yourself to the world. Right now, AuthorsRoost.com is running a very special program, so don't be distracted. Take a look at it right now. AuthorsRoost.com. AuthorsRoost.com, the resource site for authors, writers, and speakers. AuthorsRoost.com.
Psychic Source is America's most trusted psychic network. Celebrating 20 years in business in 2009, Psychic Source is also the oldest. At Psychic Source, they are proud of being the oldest and most respected psychic service available. The quality of their service is something they take seriously, so much so that they have developed a rigorous screening process for all psychics who join their community. Click on any of the Psychic Source web banners and get started today. You can find their banner right on the Achieve Radio homepage. It's on the right side in the floating box. Or click over to the top of our sponsors page. Or just give them a call. Toll free, 866-907-3682. That number again, 866-907-3682. Click or call today and join America's oldest and most respected psychic network. 866-907-3682.
Relationships can be completely confusing. However, they are our greatest learning tool to our physical and emotional growth. Through being involved with our lovers, our friends, our work colleagues, our companions, and our family, we learn more about who we are and we grow as a result. However, the opposite is also true. Relationships can be damaging, hurtful, and confusing. Intuitive Lovers is the show with me, Becky Walsh, every Wednesday, using my intuition skills to be able to give you some clarity on the relationships in your life. You can give us a call on achieveradio.com.
Hello, this is Paul McNeese of OPA Author Services. For a long time, I've believed that every author should be a speaker and every speaker should write. So today, I'm here to let you know that if you're an author or a speaker, trainer, consultant, coach, or seminar leader, there's a new nest being built just for you at AuthorsRoost.com. The Authors Roost is a new concept, a new idea, an internet membership organization, and a portal website that brings authors, speakers, and experts together with each other with lots of great information and education and with their marketplaces, including media all over the country and with local, regional, and national meeting planners, people who hire speakers every day. The Authors Roost is definitely going to be a place where you can learn and teach and grow by interacting with others who, like you, are willing to share their ideas and experience. So, take a look right now at The Authors Roost, AuthorsRoost.com. I think you'll be very glad you did.
You and I travel to the beat of a different drum.
Encouragement, empowerment, enlightenment. AchieveRadio.com.
Take eyes at me.
Presented on this program is original, proprietary, and copyrighted. It is for your personal benefit only. You cannot claim that it is yours, nor can you teach or write it as your own. Any reuse requires written permission. Please take this seriously. This is not a fictitious warning.
AchieveRadio.com, and I try to be with you as many Sundays as possible at 1600 Universal Time. What do? I teach homeopathy in its original spiritual format, i.e. in its quantum physics format, when spirituality does not comply with quantum physics. It's really not spirituality. It's a made-up thing. And so that is my definition. When I say real spirituality, it actually corresponds to real rules and real science. If it does not correspond to that, it is not real spirituality. It is a fantasy, and we have plenty of that out there everywhere and many places I go. But, hey, fantasy is good as well. It gives some relaxation. It gives a good feeling. It's just like watching a movie. Not every movie you watch is a documentary. So I teach homeopathy in its original spiritual format, in its quantum physics format. I teach personal growth and Kabbalah worldwide. I have people all around the world who benefit from my help with homeopathy. I teach medical doctors, naturopaths, chiropractors, osteopaths, nurses, and healthcare physicians worldwide, as well as the common housewife who does a wonderful job. And how many times do we think that the common housewife is, what does she do anyhow? Well, she does quite a bit. She works really hard and oftentimes raises children and puts a lot of her energy. It is a very, very difficult and valuable job, because otherwise those beautiful little children do not mount up too much. So, hey, it is just as important, or maybe more important, than many of the other things out there. So when I say the common housewife, I actually believe that that is the working force of the universe. And I need to do my own horn, so here we go. Some people say I'm the best in the world, or some of the very best, and I hope for my sake and your sake that that is true. Try to do my very best every day to hold up to that standard and even more as time goes by. Once in a while, like everything, I have one case or another case that seems a little more difficult. But, you know, that's life. There's these low percentages that as we work on them, they improve and give you a greater and finer understanding of the universe and of what you do and how you do and how it works. What are we going to talk about today? Well, gee whiz, you know what? To be honest with you, I had such a packed day. Actually, you know, I'm at the other side of where this radio station is. I'm actually in Israel right now. And I don't always tell you where I'm at, but sometimes when I'm here, I feel like telling you because it's such a controversial place. And so I can tell you that the streets are beaming with people having a good time. Security is everywhere, but it is not felt. People are accustomed to it, and every place is secured and safe and watched, and it is not a stressful environment, but rather a relaxed environment. And people are doing their very best to enjoy and to make everybody else enjoy. And I can tell you that even though we hear out there all these awful things, Israel is probably one of the places in the world where Arabian people and Muslims walk around the streets free without being threatened or frightened or harassed, and they're smiling and happy. And one of them made a wonderful sandwich for me this morning. It was joking with me, telling me a joke, and sending me on my way with a lot of love, and said, I'll see you tomorrow. And I've been getting a sandwich from him every day. So it's not what you believe out there when you imagine all the horrible things that we imagine about war and people and the horrible things that are happening. On the other hand, I'm sure that somewhere out there, there's some terrorist probably thinking that this Arab or this Muslim that made me the sandwich should be executed, and that Allah or God will punish him, or that he needs to punish him in the name of God. And that just gives you the variety of people. There are good people, there are bad people, and there are good people and bad people every place and everywhere. And those who like war and like strife always find a reason. People like to be justified in what they do. They like to feel that they have a right to kill, that God grants them the right. And you will find, believe it or not, we just don't have an attack of that right now, but you will find plenty of Christians who believe just that. and it is unbelievable. You'll find plenty of Jews who believe like that. And so people who really believe in strife and in pain believe that, whether they are Muslim, Christian, Jewish. And I don't know, maybe Buddhism is this incredible religion where people are taught to be peaceful, and maybe sometimes too peaceful. I think that actually can be harmful when you are not taught to protect yourself or to maintain your life or life force or your family. But again, I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough, even though I meet many Buddhist people, but somehow their whole religion just is a very peaceful one. I, for myself, like some of its philosophies, but do not like its manifestation because I believe it's too passive. I believe there is a middle way, but I do not believe against it or think it's bad. I think it's a good and pretty religion that brings a lot of happiness and joy to many people and probably brings prosperity with it when practiced correctly. So just wanted to give you a little flavor, because when I come to this part of the world, there are all these things going on here, and I spend quite a bit of time in this part of the world, almost half the year. And so almost half of my time I'm here, and a few months in North America, and a few months in Europe, and a few months in other places in the world. And I just agreed to do some stuff in Russia and in Australia, which I was trying to delay the last few years because I had so much going on. But I will again travel to these far-out places, and maybe I will dance with a kangaroo again. And, maybe I'll ruin my English a little bit. Not that it's the best, but hey. So here we go, me just chatting with you because I did not really have the time. There was so much going on since yesterday. And what I wanted to talk about today, because I know that people go through these things, and it is always a sign of something. I think I might have said something on a previous show, but in the Icke, which is not a Jewish format of spiritual practice, but it is out from the East, from ancient days of China. In the Book of Changes, it's called the Book of Changes. You can look it up on Google or on Bing or on. Let me tell you about a wonderful search engine that's actually called Mama.com. Now, I warn you that if you will not spell Mama correctly, the scenes that will come in front of your eyes will wreak havoc in your brain unless you're really perverted. And that did happen to me, and I was very upset. So spell Mama correctly. Mama.com is a wonderful search engine that I've used quite often, and it's called Mama, the mother of all search engines, and it's actually a real good one. You can search, and you can search about the Book of Changes, about the I Ching, and learn a little bit about it. It's an ancient way of telling your future without having to go to a fortune teller. And you throw these sticks or you throw these coins, and the way they fall in different ways, and you mathematically calculate which hexagram or which chapter in the book fits your situation. And one of the things that I've seen with that book over years is that people do not know how to read it. So they oftentimes get an answer from the book and they read it completely opposite of how it was intended. And so it is not for the weak of heart, or rather it is not for those who think that it's a simple deal. So when you try to use the book in order to see what kind of possibilities are ahead of you, and again I say possibilities because the future is not set in stone. It is a probability, and it is highly and most likely to happen if you are to continue in your present path. If you suddenly decide to do something very, very sudden, it changes your whole future and everything in it. So the Book of Changes is a way of not telling your absolute future, but telling the probabilities ahead of you and giving you some idea where your own energy in the way it is set right now is leading you or guiding you, and with the correct knowledge of how to use it. And as I said, not everybody can use it successfully. You can benefit from it quite a bit. And I can tell you that the beginning of when I tried to use it, and I've tried to use it for, I'd say, 5 consecutive years, with it being very unsuccessful, and I did not really understand what it was saying or how it was saying. And it is just at some point as I've grown spiritually that it became a very valuable tool in my hands. So here we go, talk to you a little bit about the Book of Changes. And so in the Book of Changes, it speaks about one of the things that happens. You know, you might ask a question, and in that question, it will give you this hexagram that says, well, you know, everything seems to be going the wrong way. Everything is falling apart. The ground is cracking underneath your feet. The trees are falling into dust. And what you perceive from that is a very grim, deadly, and scary reality, while in fact, this is not the intention of this hexagram, meaning the intention of the hexagram is to explain a period where a person is cleaning their house, where they are taking the old carpet, throwing it away so that they can buy a new carpet. They are taking things that were just sitting there and rotting away or taking unnecessary space and throwing them away in order to make space for new things, where they're buying new plants and new flowers, and everything is in a process of change. And so many times when people ask me and I help them look at the I Ching, when they get this reading, they get very, very nervous and very, very unhappy that this is what they're dealing with, because normally the picture, like they will draw a picture of things falling apart, of nothing holding together, and the common person does not really understand that this does not mean that life has come to an end or bad things are coming. It is basically, it means strictly change. It means change, and it means that in change, those things that are not necessary go away. Now, from a medical perspective and from a healing perspective, let me explain this to you, and you will actually understand how exciting this is and how beautiful this is. From a health perspective, when your cells defecate properly, when they get rid of the dirt properly, they renew themselves and rejuvenate themselves, and they fill with clean and pure liquids. And when you look at them, if you're able to look at them under a microscope, they look clean and flush and juicy and strong and vital. And many cells like that create a very vital, strong, young, and powerful organism. And so basically, this process of the defecation of the dirt going away is this very hexagram. So when you get the reading, I'm going to say this in a not very, very nice way, when you get the reading that says everything is rotting, everything is falling apart, you are in a process of change, what you need to think is that you're sitting on the toilet and defecating, and that's what that means. That's the time when you simply go to the bathroom. And then after the time you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands, and you come out to the world. You don't tell anyone you went to the bathroom. You go eat new, fresh food. You feel energetic, and you feel healthy and strong. So life is a perspective. You see, now I gave you a totally new and different perspective of life. And the thing is that when you go to the bathroom, you know what you're doing, and you know it's going to go away in another 5 minutes, and you'll be back in the real world talking to real people, having your hands clean, having your life all refreshed and your energy renewed. But when this happens in your life, normally what you feel is a feeling of fear, because this doesn't take a day or two. This process takes months, and every so often you go through a week like that, or through a day like that, or through months like that, and it is scary. If you don't understand what's going on, and you don't understand what a blessing it is to be able to simply go to the bathroom, and then you don't understand what a blessing you have received. And actually, Jews pray every day that, thank you, King of the universe, who have made me have different holes, and God forbid, should one of these holes become stuffed up and plugged, I could not stand or survive even for 1 second. So this is a blessing, this is a prayer that people pray every day so that they may understand how valuable it is to have holes, to have places where the dirt can leave, and also to have holes, to have places where liquid and nourishment can come in, and some of these places are clean and some of these places are less clean. And so in my life, I have gone through a period of losing all kinds of things, and as I was losing these things, I was so disappointed at first because things were grinding away and things were breaking, and all kinds of things of the old were washing away, grinding away, and breaking. And my initial response was, oh, there's got to be something wonderful that's happening. But my secondary response was the little child who said, oh, no, I'm going to lose my little car. I'm going to lose my little this. And so all kinds of things that I didn't plan on having to depart from departed from my life. And in essence, when I look at it overall, I can understand that this stuff is what is happening. Now, by the way, to all you beautiful people out there who might have sent me email in the last week and a half or 2 weeks, I somehow have some of the emails from the last 2 weeks got erased. So if you sent me an email the last 2 weeks, you can send it again because it got erased, and that's mainly to my virtual address. So that's the virtual address. You can go ahead and send it again. So, yeah, things of the past go away, and then what happens is if you are patient and if you do not allow yourself to get scared, the new things will come up, and the beautiful new little leaves will come up. Little pieces of them will show their little nose, their little face, their beautiful glistening eyes, and you will experience a renewal. And so there's the hexagram of death, and that hexagram of death is really an hexagram of change. It is an hexagram of defecation. It does not mean you are going to die. It does not mean that you are going to lose good things. It just means defecation. But, you know, these people were so much into the mystic, and they wanted to let you understand that anything that is expelled from who you are, from what you are, and from your world is called death. It is the end of the cycle, and that after the end of the cycle comes a renewal. So that is something to understand and not to fear it, not to be anxious about it, but to simply go through the process, to close your eyes and let the river carry you, and you will come out on the other side. So sometimes in life we go through these periods. I have lost some trees in my yard, and I planted 5 more instead. I have my garage door suddenly, the door opener suddenly broke, and so I'm in the middle of building a better one. And, you know, again, these things are also relative, because I'm not enough time in any one place for one long enough period to be able to obsess about it. Or at least sometimes I do, but, I don't have enough time to complete the process, so I need to do it in stages. And so for all of you out there, whether it is in love and whether it is in the foods that you used to eat and now don't eat, whether it is your garage door or your garage door opener, whether it is your car, no matter what it is, there is that process. And remember that death only means defecation. It means getting rid of the bad stuff out of your system. Now, as you can hear the noise in the background, I always wonder why people need to have all kinds of vehicles that make more noise than what they're worth, including little airplanes and things of such. But, it's so I can make a comment on the radio. The weather in Israel is really, really pretty. I'm here many times when I don't tell you I'm here, but the weather is really, really nice, and we had a little bit of a sandstorm. The sandstorm was nothing but a dark cloud that came from Saudi Arabia going over the Red Sea, or what it actually should have been called Reed Sea, like bamboo sea, reed, because there are reeds growing in it, and it's only called the Red Sea because the guy who translated it made a spelling mistake, and we still call it the Red Sea until today. You believe that? But it's actually the Reed Sea, like a bamboo sea. It's a sea that has a lot of these plant, a lot of these long-growing things that look like very thin bamboos, and they're called reeds and not red. So the Reed Sea, the Red Sea, it came over the Red Sea and up going northwest towards Israel. So here we come to the end of the first part of the show, and I kind of made it a light project today and a light explanation today, but I think it is very, very valuable, and I hope a lot of you out there, instead of grieving over things that are passing, understand you just in the bathroom, wash your hands, cheer up, stand up, finish what you're doing, let the process begin, let that old stuff go away and come back into a new beginning, a new, fresh, young, useful, strong, powerful beginning so that you can feel good and bring goodness and happiness and love to everyone around you. So this is Vega Rosenberg on AchieveRadio.com. I want to thank Bill, who runs this wonderful radio show, and we are coming to the break. I will be back with you after the break. You can take a look at my website, universalaffluence.com. Here we go. Here's the music.
This is Paul McNeese of OPA Author Services. For a long time, I've believed that every author should be a speaker and every speaker should write. So today, I'm here to let you know that if you're an author or a speaker, trainer, consultant, coach, or seminar leader, there's a new nest being built just for you at AuthorsRoost.com. The Authors Roost is a new concept, a new idea, an internet membership organization, and a portal website that brings authors, speakers, and experts together with each other, with lots of great information and education, and with their marketplaces, including media all over the country, and with local, regional, and national meeting planners, people who hire speakers every day. The Authors Roost is definitely going to be a place where you can learn and teach and grow by interacting with others who, like you, are willing to share their ideas and experience. So, take a look right now at The Authors Roost, AuthorsRoost.com. I think you'll be very glad you did.
Psychic Source is America's most trusted psychic network. Celebrating 20 years in business in 2009, Psychic Source is also the oldest. At Psychic Source, they are proud of being the oldest and most respected psychic service available. The quality of their service is something they take seriously, so much so that they have developed a rigorous screening process for all psychics who join their community. Click on any of the Psychic Source web banners and get started today. You can find their banner right on the Achieve Radio homepage. It's on the right side in the floating box. Or click over to the top of our sponsors page. Or just give them a call. Toll free, 866-907-3682. That number again, 866-907-3682. Click or call today and join America's oldest and most respected psychic network. 866-907-3682.
Have you got inner child? Woodstock and magic still run in our veins despite world crisis. Anne-Marie Odell takes national calls on love, career, and spirit with 38 years certified reading experience and over 15,000 client feedbacks. Call on love, career, or spirit. It's Sunday matinee laced with professional master tarot at Angel Bling's Psychic Theater.
Encouragement, empowerment, enlightenment. AchieveRadio.com.
Material presented on this program is original, proprietary, and copyrighted. It is for your personal benefit only. You cannot claim that it is yours, nor can you teach or write it as your own. Any reuse requires written permission. Please take this seriously. This is not a fictitious warning.
Again on AchieveRadio.com, and as I said before, I try to be with you as many Sundays as possible for me or for the universe at 1600 Universal Time. And what do? I teach personal growth, spirituality, Kabbalah, and homeopathy to medical doctors, naturopaths, chiropractors, osteopaths, nurses, health practitioners, and the common housewife and the common attorney, engineer, whoever it is who wants to study. And so I teach it to all, and I teach personal growth with that. And today, I spoke a little bit about the process of death, or the process of dirt, or the process of defecation. It's 3 times that it starts with D, 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 D. And so we're going to call the radio show today Death and Rebirth. No, that's boring. That sounds too old. We're going to call it Dirt and Rebirth. And so that even rhymes better. Dirt and Rebirth sounds just wonderful. And so our radio show is about that. And if you have anything you want to add, anything you want to send in, you want to send me a little text message, I will be glad to respond or to read out loud what you sent or what you wrote. It will be very, very valuable. So go ahead and send me, write me. I will be glad to answer your little thing or read it on the radio waves, on the internet waves. Let's see. What else can I tell you about this subject? I kind of pulled it out of my sleeve just so that we have something light today, because I had a very long 24 hours. And what else can I tell you about this process? And so, first of all, this process of rebirth is a process where you should gracefully accept the departure. Well, let's put it this way. You should gracefully accept the departure of the old things in your life, which potentially you might have liked, or you might have loved, or you might miss, but you should accept that departure because it is a part of something old that was not constructive to you. Now, that's not to say that sometimes people don't live their life correctly, and then they send away from their life intentionally, knowingly, willingly. They send out and away from their life things that should not go out of their life, and that they do knowingly and intentionally. On the other hand, so many times things do go out of our life without us contributing to it. And you suddenly come and find out that, a bird pooped on your car and you no longer can drive it. And so who knows? For some people, that's how it works. Or you find out that the trees in your yard just decided to crash and crack from a storm, or whatever it is that might happen, and you might feel sad, but you need to accept it lovingly, willingly, wantingly, and say, hey, there's a new day out there, and I am going to go towards that new day. So if you, and here's what I'm going to tell you, this is going to sound a little bit odd. If you understand when this dirt leaves your life, okay, it's DDD, it's the same letter as the letter D for door. When this dirt, door, leaves your life, and it's actually the same letter for door in Hebrew, delet, door. And so door is a place where things move in and out of certain dimensions, and also it is a way where things move in and out into and from your life. And so hopefully from a clean door flows in beautiful, clean energy, and out of a lesser clean door flows out the dirt. And I think that in our life, because of our society and the way we think and live, we spend more time encouraging more light and more beauty to flow into our life through the door of light and beauty and cleanliness. And so in our life, these things flow in, but we do not exert, and we do not feel like, and we do not try to send out vigorously things out of our life. We focus on the light coming in. We do not focus on the dirt going out. And I find this actually very, very disappointing, because if you do not focus on the dirt going out, it is very, very difficult to focus on the light coming in. So what actually happens is, and you see this with a lot of people, that as they focus on the light coming in, they forget to focus on the dirt going out. They spend a lot of vigor and energy bringing the light in, but do not spend vigor and energy sending the dirt out. And they have this delusion, and it is definitely, absolutely a delusion, a fantasy, that this process of simply focusing on the light coming in is all that's going to do the trick. And I want to tell you that unless you push out the dirt vigorously with strength, you will have a very, very hard time bringing in the light, because there's going to be no space for the new stuff to come in. Now, that is to differentiate between someone who focuses on dirt negativity all the time. So you need to understand that you have to focus on good stuff. Focus on the good stuff, and from time to time, spend a very short amount of time focusing on pushing the dirt out. That's just the way it works. There is no other way of doing it. So keep in mind, you have to focus most of the time on the clean stuff, but you have to focus some of the time on the dirty stuff, just in order to vigorously send it out. So if you have anything to do with that, if you want to talk about that, if you want to send an example, then go ahead and send me a little text message. Take a look at the Achieve Radio website, and right under the H of the Achieve, there's a little thing that says in quick message, and you can put just like your first name and where you're from, and you can send me a little text. I'm just lonely today, trying to get you to write something, but actually I'm not lonely at all. I'm in good spirits. I've gone through a lot the last 24 hours, and I actually send one more thing out of my life. I did it with love, someone who I worked with and love very, very much, and still love and continue to be friends with, but I simply understood that it was time for us to do different things. This person needs to do something else, and so do I. And so, the old went away, and something new is about to come in. Now, mind you, you see, that's not necessarily bad, because it's going to give someone else an opportunity to do something else and give me an opportunity to do something else. So this is just how life works. If you look at it positively, then it's not about dirt. It is just understanding that what is no longer good becomes just like dirt. So if you eat a lot of meat, if you're eating a lot of meat, all the time meat, all the time meat, all the time meat, and you're not eating vegetables, and you're not eating fruit, and you are not mixing that meat with other things that make it flow and make it liquidy, then that meat at some point, when you take that sandwich and eat it one more time, it becomes just like dirt. It basically, even though it's good, of good quality, even though it's wonderful, it will stuff you up, it will make you fat, it will make you feel sick. And so it's dirt, and at that time, it's time to throw that sandwich away or give it to someone else instead of consuming it. And so I call it defecation just to give you an idea of thought. I call it dirt to give you an idea of thought, but it could also be something good. So sometimes someone invites you to eat a great meal, and you need to decline because you're not hungry. Sometimes you get offers that sound wonderful and might even be good, but you need to decline because it is not healthy for you. So this is something, it is a lesson in life, and it is out of greed that we do not agree to do that. So it is two things that normally hold us back from shooting forward like an arrow out of a bow. In our life, we need to move forward and propel forward like an arrow out of a bow, And in order to do that, we need to be free of two things. We need to be free of fear, and we need to be free of greed, because both these things make it so that the bow becomes stiff and not flexible, and therefore it cannot shoot the arrow forward with strength. So what is important to understand is, in order to shoot the bow forward with strength, you cannot allow fear to hold you back from doing what you need to do. You need to just do it and get it over with and move on forward. And it makes no difference what you have done before. And so people don't understand that when you buy a car that's a lemon and you are trying to fix that car time and time again, the more you fix it, the more it breaks, the more it breaks, the more you fix it. And you take a look 5 years later and you see you had put into that car $10,000. If you had spent those $3,000 you spent initially and another $10,000, you would have had a car for $13,000 that would have served you without grief, without pain, and probably would have still been in service, and it wouldn't have cost you so much money to maintain it, but just the minimum maintenance. And so fear might hold you back. The fear that, oh my God, what would people say? Then I'll need to admit I bought a lemon. Oh my God, what would people say if I do A, B, C, D, E? Or the greed that, well, now that I've invested in this car so much, now it's worth $10,000. Well, the answer is no, it's not. You might invest in something so much, it is not worth more. One of the examples that I give in my lectures around the world as I teach people to become successful, and as I teach people to do homeopathy in a higher quality. So I teach people how to become more successful in business. I teach people to do homeopathy in a higher quality. I teach people Kabbalah. And one of the things that I teach them is not to listen to the common thing. And the common thing is, well, my experience is I have done this for 20 years. One of the things that people do not realize, and the whole world, however, works according to this misnomer, according to this dead theory, is that if you have done something for 50 years, that means you're very good at it. That is a misnomer. That's not so. That might actually be a very thick and fast lie. And the awful example, crude, ugly, and disgusting that I give people is that if you make love in the ear for 50 years, you will still not have a baby. And so making love in the ear for 1 minute, 10 minutes, 100 years, 50 years, or 30 years does not make you have a baby. So you can never be a master of having a baby if you do it the wrong way. I know this is crude and ugly, but it is an example that portrays the very essence of what I say. Just someone saying, I've been doing this for a long time, does not make them an expert, and nor should it give them any credence. It should not give them the power to make you feel like you know less because you've done it for a short time. So, as a matter of fact, when you are doing something, it is not necessarily that you're doing it wrong because you're doing it for a short time, and it is not necessarily that you are doing it right because you're doing it for a very, very long time. It only takes making love for 1 second or for a few seconds, and if it's done correctly, at least for baby making, you have conception, you have a baby, you have a child, you have a person who that person not only grows to make a whole life on their own, but from them comes a whole universe, a whole world. All the people on this earth have come from one person. And so obviously one person can make such a big difference, greater than anything you can imagine. And so that's from making love correctly for just 2 seconds. And yet you can make love incorrectly for 100 million years and nothing will come of it. The same way is true in homeopathy. The same way is true in many, many other things. because it's very, very important. People tell me always, well, I didn't know homeopathy can be done like that. I'm not sure. I know that I take a case 5 hours and you only take a case for 5 minutes. And so how could it be that you could do better than me if you only spend 5 minutes taking a case and I spend 5 hours taking a case? Well, the answer is when you do something correctly, it needs not take so much time. And you will see that when you actually come in the presence of a master, you will see that they will do something. You're going to look at it, and it might be that what they do is they stand with a chainsaw outside and take a piece of wood, and they simply format out of that piece of wood. Within 15 minutes, you can see that they format a complete beautiful statue made of wood. They make little bears, they make little tigers, they make all these animals, and you wonder, how could someone in 15 minutes with a chainsaw make this piece of wood look like it has taken probably a month to create? But I've watched people do this in 15 minutes, and their work is so accurate and so pretty and so impressive that when you look at it, you would have never imagined it took 15 minutes, because it actually is an expertise. And so an expertise done correctly is what it's all about. And doing something incorrectly, you can do it for 1,000 years, and it just does not do the trick. And so here we go. Joanne from Phoenix says, good morning, Vega. Thank you for this show, for I believe that I'm going through pushing out the bad stuff right now. It was scary until I embraced it The process has been easier. I released a potential unhealthy business partnership and left an unhealthy living situation with a roommate. Thank you for the words of encouragement and guidance. So you're very, very welcome, and I'm glad, Joanne, that you took on and the courage to move forward and to do what you needed to do so your life may be healthier and stronger and filled with energy. And I have here another little text on the screen, and so these are the texts that come, and this was from Phoenix, Arizona. So as you said, good morning. Let me tell you, Joanne, that I say good night, and it is actually here. Let's see what time it is. It is 8 minutes before 7 in the evening, 1900. Not the 1900s, but it's 1900 hour. And Michelle says, from Spokane, she says, message, glad that I found you. I'm enjoying your show. I am a shiksa, spelling that gravitates towards Hebrew law and mysticism, trying to be a good little Noahide. I'm planning to move to Arizona in March. Would like to attend your classes. Love and light to you and yours. Well, you're very welcome, and you're welcome to attend my classes. Michelle, if you want to attend my classes, take a look at my website. That's universalaffluence.com, and you'll find my email there. You can write to me a little more. I can give you more information. And I'll give you that email address again. It's a very long email address. You write it in small letters and all connected, and it is webmaster@lawfulspiritualhomeopathyworks.com. Now, of course, you would need to know how to spell all of that correctly. And so if you don't want to go through the trouble, just take a look at my website, and on my website you will find my email address, webmaster@lawfulspiritualhomeopathyworks, like this stuff works, with an S at the end, like Stephen. And I'll be glad to entertain you and hope I can help you. My classes, however, since you brought it up, some of them are just as lovely as the radio show, and some of them are a little bit harder to go through. They force a person to look inside. Sometimes it's annoying. Sometimes I'm very, very tough in class. Sometimes I'm like the sergeant in the army, and sometimes you think you're sitting in heaven on a beautiful balloon and enjoying the sunshine. And so it depends on the day, but if you really want to grow and you want to change, then this would be a wonderful opportunity for you. We are coming to the end of the radio show. We have another 2 minutes and 12 seconds. I want to thank all of you who are listening out there. And, as time goes by and I see that more and more people listen to this program, it just gives me more motivation to do these shows, even though not always can I do it. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I feel I don't have the vocabulary for the day. Sometimes I feel I don't have the right thoughts and ideas. I feel like too much is going on. And so I try to provide as many of these as possible. This is actually the first time that someone wrote to me in the middle of the radio show, hey, I want to come to your class. So who knows, maybe one time I'll actually get a student from the show. And if not, there are students of life all around the world enjoying this and bringing prosperity into your life. I want to thank Bill, who keeps this radio station going. If you want to get me, you can take a look at my website at universalaffluence.com. You can also call in North America 256-990-6684. I'm not the one to pick it up all the time, but you will be able to leave me some messages. Much love, all the very best, and here's the music, and until next time, all the very best to all of you.
This is Paul McNeese of OPA Author Services. For a long time, I've believed that every author should be a speaker and every speaker should write. So today, I'm here to let you know that if you're an author or a speaker, trainer, consultant, coach, or seminar leader, there's a new nest being built just for you at AuthorsRoost.com. The Authors Roost is a new concept, a new idea, an internet membership organization, and a portal website that brings authors, speakers, and experts together with each other with lots of great information and education and with their marketplaces, including media all over the country and with local, regional, and national meeting planners, people who hire speakers every day. The Authors Roost is definitely going to be a place where you can learn and teach and grow by interacting with others who, like you, are willing to share their ideas and experience. So, take a look right now at the Authors Roost, AuthorsRoost.com. I think you'll be very glad you did.
Believe in yourself. AchieveRadio.com.
Underneath your old worn-out green blanket, in a mattress on the floor.